for being here. Good to have you join us this evening, and thanks to everybody who has helped to get us to 34.6k likes on TikTok. Thank you very much. So thank you, J-Man. Thank you very much. Abby71. Thanks. I'm trying to see if I can get as many names as possible. Bumblebee, thank you very much. Thank you for your support and for liking the live. If you're on TikTok, please kindly power tap as well and also share the live. And please click on the heart icon above my picture to join the team. If you're already a member, just drop a heart to me or drop a gift so that we can get the live to the FYP together. Thank you very much, Koboko. Thank you for your consistency and for your support. I really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody joining us today. Again, lovely Wednesday evening. And like I said yesterday, we're going to be discussing political history today. That takes us back to 1955. We had a session a while back when we discussed the meeting that held at Chatham House in London. And the particular speech we're going to be looking at today is the one that was delivered by the Governor General of Nigeria, John McPherson. He was Governor General from 1948 to 1954, and he had a lot of things to say about the country. And he described the three, major groups. Of course, the three regions at the time. Nigeria already had three regions: the North, the East, and the West. And then he went ahead to talk about the groups and also the major ethnic groups in those three regions. All right. And I think the interesting thing for me is that the more things change, the more they remain the same. So when I look at what's happening in the country today, and I look at the statement in 1955, nothing has really changed. Whatever challenges we had then, we still have now. And the conversation really is not to say, oh, see, we've not made progress. That's not the point. The point is to actually shine the light on these issues, and hopefully we'll be able to do something about it. And also to, Yorùbá ló wá sí mi lọ́kàn sí Tawaji or Tawalulubo, to help us understand the fact that Nigeria's history is beyond, correct. 1 second, please. Nigeria's history is beyond Lord Lugard, 1914. There are some intricate things that still influence the things that happen in our society today. So the more we understand that, the more we are able to tackle the issues. Now, this particular video you're about to listen to went live yesterday evening, and then the part 2 earlier today. And there are people who have been frothing on the mouth and just crying all over the place. Oh, you hate us. Oh, that's your business. The point is that you have not changed so much. And for you to be able to, the complaints that were present at the time, somehow, what's it that they read their ugly heads again. So we have to take the chance or the opportunity to fix those things and make sure that we don't find ourselves in trouble, because our forebears saw the lethargy, which is the problem that Yorùbá had back in the day. They saw that problem and they dealt with it. We also have a duty to fix it in our generation. Okay, don't be like those who are throwing tantrums on social media saying, why are you talking about our ethnic group? John McPherson was wrong. But we have a different approach to history, especially if what was said is true. If it's not true, that's a different matter altogether, but it is true. And again, it's a shame that we are still grappling with the same issues, but it's good that at least we can learn from our forebears and know how to better tackle the issues. Having said that, let me welcome our folks on YouTube and on Facebook. Thank you very much for being here. Please like the live, also share and subscribe, particularly on YouTube. Thank you very much. Great to me. I actually don't know Enlighten. Enlighten came to me, but I just feel I should say it in Yoruba. But thank you very much for telling me the English for Itaniji, to enlighten ourselves. All right. Thank you. It's good to have English speakers, especially when all you can speak is Yoruba. So, all right. Having said that, I'm going to read the description of this video. Again, the replays we have here are already on our YouTube channel, so you can always watch it much later. But I think you're going to enjoy having this because we're going to put the two parts together rather than you having to experience any breaks. Okay. So I'm going to read the description, then we get into the conversation proper. By the way, if you see, just come with an open heart, listen to it, and whatever you want to take away, take from it. But please, if you're coming here to continue whatever you started on other platforms, please don't. All right? God bless you. Okay? You have peace in your home if you give me peace. All right. God bless everybody. Let's read the description. The declassified record. By the way, sorry guys, there is we have visibility issue on TikTok because we're using images. So please, if you're on TikTok, kindly support us by power tapping. Okay? And thanks to those who are already doing it. I really appreciate it. The declassified records from the 1955 General Meeting at Chatham House provide a startlingly candid look into the British colonial perspective on the Federation of Nigeria. Sir John Macpherson, a former Governor General, laid out a detailed assessment of the three regions that still resonates within our modern political discourse. His observations reveal the deep-seated perceptions that the British held regarding the diversity of the North, West, and East, describing a country that was already grappling with internal pressures of identity and administrative regionalism. This historical snapshot proves that the diversity of races, religions, and stages of development seen then remains the definitive reality of the Nigerian state today. The analysis of the North reveals a region with an effective system of native administration under emirs who held great authority for over a century. Macpherson noted that the North was primarily concerned with catching up in Western education to avoid being dominated by Southern professionals whom they refer to as local expatriates. This fear of their way of life being interfered with led the Northern leadership to prefer retaining British officers even as independence approached. The records show a region desperately anxious to protect its heritage while navigating the modern demands of a self-governing Nigeria. In the West, the colonial records describe the wealthiest of the regions sustained by the cocoa industry and a long-standing connection with Europe. The Yorùbá people are characterized as sophisticated and comfortable and had to be steered out of lethargy and mobilized by a vigorous group of intellectuals to face challenges from other parts of the Federation. Meanwhile, the East is described as a region with no indigenous authority higher than the extended family, driven by a thrustful and pushful population seeking Lebensraum and opportunity in other regions due to poor soils. These colonial assessments highlight the origins of the centrifugal forces that continue to shape how the different ethnic groups relate to one another. This historical assessment remains our reality today. The North still grapples with lack of Western education, and it is time for the West to be steered out of its lethargy. There's an urgent need to push back against folks who are committed to vigorously occupying Yoruba spaces and demanding ridiculous rights that undermine the heritage of the land. The Lebensraum ideology of the East is not dead. It is why the Igbos, 70 years after this meeting, were so committed to a bill that would make them indigents in other people's lands. Their discontent with state of origin and preference for state of residence are all products of a need for living spaces, mirroring the thrustful nature described by Macpherson. This drive is also why they are bent on having Anioma State as a sixth state in the southeast. We do ourselves no favor by acting as if these historical realities are mere fantasy. Nothing much has changed over the decades, and both citizens and political actors must appreciate that these deep-seated identities determine our national interactions. Creating structures that factor these realities into building the country is the only path forward, as these traits are unlikely to simply go away. Acknowledging this colonial blueprint allows us to understand the fears and aspirations that still drive the Nigerian political engine today. Here is Declassified or Colonial Report: Why Hausa, Yorùbá, and Igbo haven't changed since 1955. Enjoy. Well, this thing I'm about to read is a speech. It was a meeting actually, but it was a speech that was delivered at that meeting. The meeting held at Chatham House in London on Thursday, 20th October 1955, and the subject of the conversation was the Federation of Nigeria, and the person speaking, whose speech I'm going to be reading, is Sir John Macpherson. Why do we need to listen to this? Because he was Governor General of Nigeria from 1948 to 1954. And during this meeting in 55, he had some things to say about the three regions in Nigeria. At the time, we already had three federating units. We had the North, we had the West, and we had the East. And sometimes you want to understand how things came to be. It's important to also look through the eyes of those who were participants in the making of history. So this happened in 55. Again, it's titled The Federation of Nigeria, speech by John Macpherson. From the figures I have given you of Syrians, Lebanese, and Indians, you will see that there is no immigration problem in Nigeria. And there is no land ownership problem because from the very beginning of the British administration, the land was kept for the people, mainly under communal ownership. So we see that Nigeria is an African country, a black country, and cannot be anything else. This thing I'm about to read is a speech. It was a meeting actually, but it was a speech that was delivered at that meeting. The meeting held at Chatham House in London on Thursday, 20th October 1955. And the subject of the conversation was the Federation of Nigeria, and the person speaking, whose speech I'm going to be reading, is Sir John Macpherson. Why do we need to listen to this? Because he was Governor General of Nigeria from 1948 to 1954. And during this meeting in 55, he had some things to say about the three regions in Nigeria. At the time, we already had three federating units. We had the North, we had the West, and we had the East. And sometimes you want to understand how things came to be. It's important to also look through the eyes of those who were participants in the making of history. So this happened in 55. Again, it's titled The Federation of Nigeria, speech by John Macpherson. From the figures I have given you of Syrians, Lebanese, and Indians, you will see that there is no immigration problem in Nigeria. And there is no land ownership problem because from the very beginning of the British administration, the land was kept for the people, mainly under communal ownership. So we see that Nigeria is an African country, a black country, and cannot be anything else. The people of Nigeria aspire to become a self-governing African country within the British Empire and Commonwealth. Not even the most extreme Nigerian nationalists have ever suggested or advocated anything else. Although from time to time, a remark is made that that is contingent on a continuance by Britain, by Her Majesty's government, of their present bipartisan policy towards colonial territories such as Nigeria. But although it is virtually an all-African country, there is, as I am sure you know, very great diversity. Diversity of races or tribes, of religion, of languages. There are literally hundreds of languages and no local lingua franca. Although one language, Hausa, will take you over most of the northern region. Diversity of climate and vegetation, from the humid mangrove swamps along the southern coast through rainforest into orchard, bush, or savanna woodland, right up to desert conditions on the edge of the Sahara. Diversity of local law and custom. Diversity, most of all, of stages of development. Ẹkáàbọ. To illustrate that last point, we have, of course, Nigerian ministers of state, including 3 regional premiers. We have chiefs or natural rulers in the north with turbans and flowing robes. In the west with beaded crowns and state umbrellas. We have Nigerian lawyers and doctors, both men and women, and judges, including 1 regional chief justice and 1 federal justice. At the head of the Federal Medical Department is a Nigerian who was, until last October, Inspector General for the whole of Nigeria, and who for 6 or 7 years had hundreds, literally hundreds of white doctors working happily and loyally under him. The bulk of the population is provided by the millions of peasant farmers. Industry is coming on in Nigeria, but it is still essentially an agricultural country which not only feeds itself, but sends large quantities of export crops abroad, mainly to this country. For example, it was calculated 2 or 3 years ago that Nigeria sent to the United Kingdom enough edible oils to give every man, woman, and child in this country a cake of soap and a quarter pound of margarine every week. Leaving aside a multitude of other classes at the bottom end of the social development scale, we get very large numbers of sturdy pagans, called pagans because they are neither Muslim nor Christian. Many of them unclothed, living in very primitive conditions. Many of them are reluctant to come down from their rock and cactus protected villages in the hills to farm permanently on the lower slopes or the plains because, and they say this quite frankly to the Nigerian ministers, they are afraid that the British might go and then they might again be enslaved by stronger tribes. Well, there is a diversity. Again, I am sure you know Nigeria is made up of 3 regions, the north, the west, and by the way, before I go on, the most important thing to me that, all of this range is that there are different stages of development. The person will colonize say they are not the same. Yeah, we have languages, we have customs, we have laws and all those things. But one major thing at the core of that thing is the evolution of cultures, the evolution of societies. We are at different stages of development. Some were not even wearing clothes at this time, but let's continue. Again, as I am sure you know, Nigeria is made up of 3 regions, the north, the west, and the east. The quite small federal territory of Lagos and the Cameroons under United Kingdom trusteeship. The north comprises at least 3/4 of the country and more than half the population. At the last count, their population was 17 million. Islam is the dominant religion, and the people of the north have had an effective system of native administration for 150 years or more, under the emirs or chiefs. Now, these chiefs have a very great authority. Despotism has not been unknown, another word, feudalism. But they are voluntarily relinquishing a great deal of that authority and becoming constitutional rulers, with outer councils built up on the villages and district councils and so on. They are no longer any sole native authorities. The north is backward only in Western education, and that came about because Lord Lugard gave a promise that the religion of the people in the north, Islam, would not be interfered with. Hence, the missions and I'll tell that again. The north is backward only in Western education, Western in quote. And that came about because Lord Lugard gave a promise that the religion of the people in the north, Islam, would not be interfered with. Hence, no missions and hence no Western education, or very little, because until recently, the great bulk of the education has been provided by the missions with ever-increasing help from government. Now, the North is desperately anxious to catch up in this matter of Western education. They do not want to be part of a self-governing Nigeria until they are caught up. It is not only that they are afraid that their way of life will be interfered with. Most of them, this text is old book. It is not only that they are afraid that their way of life will be interfered with. Most of all, they fear that the good jobs in medicine, agriculture, engineering, and so on, vacated by British officers, will be taken over by the much more highly educated people from southern Nigeria, to whom I regret to say they are inclined to refer as local expatriates. In the north, the ministers and the chiefs and their people want to retain the British officers they have, and they want to recruit more. Some of you may have seen within the last year a letter sent to the press in this country by the Premier of the North and his fellow ministers, inviting any officers who have had to leave the Sudan to come along and work happily for northern Nigeria. More recently, you may have noticed that of all the governments in Nigeria, it was only the North which accepted the recommendation of the Gosh Salary Commission relating to the payment of children's allowances as well as children's passages to overseas officers. That's about the North. We'll discuss all these things, and you can come up at that time. I want to just read it. You can come up to speak on these things. The West is the wealthiest of the regions, largely because most of the cocoa is grown there. The people have had long connection with Europe and Europeans. They are sophisticated, well off, and comfortable. I am referring more particularly to the Yorùbá, who are the main tribe in the West. In recent years, the Yoruba people and other people of the West have been steered out of a certain easygoing lethargy under the leadership of a vigorous group of intellectuals who want them to face the possibility of a challenge from the vigorous people from the eastern region. The East, unlike the other two regions, is not at all feudal. They have chiefs of a sort, but the fact is that when the British administration took over, there was no indigenous authority higher than the head of an extended family or a small clan. In the eastern region, there is pressure of population on poor soils. That's the soil is poor. And the dominant tribe in the east, the Igbos, who are a vigorous, thrustful, pushful people, avid for education, would like to have a Lebensraum. I'll explain. Or at least opportunity in other parts of the country. For that reason, I think it can be said in general, they are more keen on a united or unified Nigeria than are the people of the other regions. Well, that is a very sketchy account, but it does show that Nigeria is not homogeneous, and that has a bearing on the recent adoption of a federal type of constitution. Nigeria is in fact a British creation. It has been called an arbitrary block of Africa or a geographical expression, quoting Papa in his book in 1947. As a unifying and welding force of Britain with, I'll take that slowly. As the unifying and welding force of Britain with its wholly beneficent Pax Britannica, there's a danger that old enmities and new jealousies and fears might set in motion a centrifugal force that could wreck the whole structure. With the greatest respect to Mr. Bradley, I do not say that exactly the same position exists in the Gold Coast, but something of the same thing can be seen there as a danger. Now, we've seen a number of things here. It gives you an idea what Nigeria was like in 1955. And I think it's important for us to interrogate some of these things. Let's start with the North. I'm going to read a book by Papa. Path to Nigerian Freedom. So this book was published again in 1947, written by Chief Obafemi Awolowo. It says here, I'm trying to provide something to also buttress some of the points that Macpherson made. He made his point in 55. Papa wrote this book in 47. That's 8 years prior. There was a time when the government forbade Christian missionaries. Excuse me. There was a time when government forbade Christian missionaries would hurt the religious susceptibilities of the Muslim North. And it is argued that this might react unfavorably on conduct of political affairs there. In the eyes of the Northerners, those who live in southern Nigeria, unless they are Muslims, are styled Kafirs, pagans, or Kafiris, no matter if they are Christians. And because they are Kafiris, they are looked upon with contempt and revulsion. The point I'm trying to make from this page, is that there was a time that the government indeed placed a ban on Christian missionaries from going up north. They did not do that because they loved people. They did that because they were trying not to upset the balance. And it should be said that the balance the North had back in the day, they had primarily because of Islam. In other words, Islam was the tool. I mean, Islam, of course, the religion. A lot of people, are Muslims, even in Yorùbá land. But in the North, it was not just a religion. It was the glue that essentially helped them bind society. And so to introduce the missions there, and of course, we know that the primary people that educated Africans or educated Nigerians at the time were missionaries. They were the ones who founded the schools, they were the ones who founded the hospitals and so on and so forth. And so the British said, you can't go north, which meant that Western education did not get there. So the major problem of the North, in fact, two major problems the North had, and you can tell if they still have that problems today. Number one is the structure, the feudal structure, where the classification of the people of society is so profound that you knew exactly where you belonged. Okay, whether an aristocrat or a serf. I've lived, amongst an aristocrat or a serf. I've lived, amongst Northerners. I've spent some time in some of their cities, and it's middle class now. But I think Northern middle class is perhaps the leanest middle class. In Northern middle class is perhaps the leanest middle class in Nigerian society, based on my observation. There's a middle class, but you're either very rich or very poor. Okay, and that's why you discover that when you say Nigeria, many people are poor in Nigeria. Majority of them you find in the north, is because of the structure of society. But that structure helped the British, to what's the word now? They helped the British to govern that space, so much so that the British had to adopt whatever the Fulanis were using. That's Lord Lugard himself, and then created indirect rule system based on the success they've had amongst the Northerners. So essentially, they had a problem with the feudal structure, and then they had a problem with Western education. Very few people were going to school. So what I just read now, when you think again about what the Sardauna said, or people were saying, oh, he's a bad man, he's everything. If you compare that with what we just read, you'll be able to appreciate his concerns at the time. And I think at this moment, I want to play that interview that he had the interview in 1964. Again, stay with me. This is not about this people are bad, these people are good. Just to explain the way the societies are structured. And if you look at history from this perspective, you can now understand two things. Number one, you see why Sardauna said what he said in 64. You also see why a lot of Hausa people are speaking up today. If you put it within historical context, it helps us to appreciate the issue better and to also know how to speak on it and where to hold back and when to actually push. So let's listen to the Sardauna.
One thing I've noticed, Premier, while I've been here, is that Northerners seem to have, I might almost call it, obsession about the Igbos. Could you perhaps explain that to me?
Well, the Igbos are more or less the type of people whose desire is mainly to dominate everybody. If they go to a village, to a town, they want to monopolize everything in that area. If you put them in a labor camp as a laborer, within a year they will try to emerge as headman of that camp, and so on. Well, in the past, our people were not alive to their responsibilities, because you can see from our northernization policy that in 1952, when I came here, there weren't 10 northerners in our civil service here. Then I tried to have it northernized, and now all important posts are being held by northerners.
Is this policy of filling all key posts in the north solely with northerners and not with other Nigerians a temporary or a permanent one?
In actual fact, what it is a northerner first. If you can't get a northerner, then we take an expatriate like yourself on contract. If we can't, then we can employ another Nigerian, but on contract too. This is going to be permanent, I should say, as far as I can foresee. The number of boys who are now turning from all our learning institutions, coming out with having no work to do. I'm sure whichever government of the day might be, it will feel rather embarrassed, and it might even lead to bloodshed.
Doesn't this damage the idea, sir, of all people in all regions in Nigeria being fellow citizens of one country?
Well, it might, but you are, new to our region, but how many northerners are employed in the east or in the west? The answer is no. And if there are, there may be 10 laborers employed only in the two regions.
Now, I believe that, when I first heard that years ago, I was like, why is he talking like that? What do you mean that they are, ambitious? What's wrong with ambition? There's nothing wrong with that. That's not what we're talking about today, by the way. But he's talking about something which we're going to come back to by discussing what when he got there in 1952, they didn't have up to 10 Northerners working in the civil service, which is a fallout of the policy of the British colonial government when they stopped the missionaries from going north. That means that there were not many schools, so many people were not educated. Therefore, you didn't have enough people working in the civil service. And that was the reason for the Northernization policy that they came up with. The Northerners came up with that make people say things that are tribalistic. They're not tribalistic. They're trying to also look out for their own people. They began to send their children to school, and they're like, we're going to have to create a space so that when they're done with school, they have a place to work. And that's what he meant by ensuring that they had the Northerners first. And you have to be a selfish olojukokoro to think there's a problem with a person trying to create space for his own people first in their own region. Okay, and that's that about the North. So basically, the two things that I got from this speech about the North is the fact that there's feudal system, and they also lacked Western education. We can go deep into that some other time. With the Yoruba people, I think it's a bit straightforward. It said here. In fact, let me finish up with the North. Let me just read a bit of it. It says here that the North is backward only in Western education, and that came about because Lord Lugard gave a promise that the religion of the people in the North, Islam, would not be interfered with. Hence, no missions and hence no Western education or very little. Because until recently, the great bulk of the education has been provided by the missions, with ever-increasing help from the government. Then down here, it says that they didn't even want to have self-government. By the way, if you also remember the 1953 conference in Lagos, where Chief Anthony Naoro moved the motion for independence in 1956, the ones who said, as soon as practicable, were Northerners. Why? I've had this conversation before. When I was in secondary school, I did government. And when I saw that, everybody's trying to break out and have independence, and you have this group saying, as soon as practicable. As soon as practicable means that there's no exact date. It can be practicable next year or 20 years' time. It's not even ASAP. It's not as soon as possible. It's as soon as practicable. I used to think that was a problem. And it was a problem. But then I also tried to look at things from the Northern perspective. The reason was because they did not have enough people to govern their space. They didn't have enough Northerners who were educated enough to fill up the positions in civil service, so that when the Oyimbos leave, they will be left with what they refer to as local expatriates, who will now fill up their spaces, which was what happened. So maybe, to be fair, Nadian Kosam, because they didn't want education because they wanted to keep the feudal system, and then later on when you're going to gain independence, you need educated people to fill those spaces, and you already done yourself in with your feudal system. So it's neither here nor there. But the point I'm making is that you can understand where they are coming from, okay? And then it says here that they would rather have Europeans working for them and British officers, and they want to recruit more. And even those who left Sudan, they would rather have them in the North and have fellow Nigerians. And the reason, of course, is because if you have fellow Nigerians working in your place, you've seen it. If you have a fellow Nigerian from a particular region working in your place, they think is their right. If you have them work on contract basis, then it's a lot easier. All of this to say that there's wisdom in what Sardauna said, even though I don't agree with all this political whatever, but on this matter, he knew what he was talking about. But let's move to the West now. Mark Person said the West is the wealthiest of the regions, largely because most of the cocoa is grown there. The people have had long connection with Europe and Europeans. One second now, I want to just read something here before we go on. Akin says, was Sardauna also imposing the feudal system on the Middle Belt at that time as well? So let's put it this way, and let's try and put it in perspective. It wasn't that he was imposing feudal system on anybody. It was that he was running the government as though it was an extension of feudal system. So because he was the premier of the North, he ran the government the way you would run. Whatever we do it based on a cultural reality for the most part. That was his reality. He was a prince, he was a Fulani prince. Okay? Grandson of Sultan Bello, direct descendant of Osman Danfodio. Yeah. So the issue with the Middle Belt really is not so much feudalism as it is refusal to have them have their own region. In other words, the real issue, because when Northerners went to school, the people in the Middle Belt also went to school now. A lot of them also worked in the civil service. A lot of folks from the Middle Belt also joined the Nigerian army as Northerners. So it wasn't like the real issue, in my opinion, and studying, the issue of that period, the real issue that the Middle Belt had was that, number one, they were not the majority group. Power was domiciled in a particular ethnicity, not Hausa. It was Fulani, because again, it was an extension of the feudal system. So the Middle Belt wanted to have their own region, just like the Sierra wanted to have their own region in the east, and the Midwest wanted to have their region in the west. But they were denied. And that's the major issue with them. Okay? But I don't want to change the topic on Middle Belt. All right, with the Western region, it says the West is the wealthiest of the regions, largely because most of the cocoa is grown there. The people have had long connection with Europe and Europeans. They are sophisticated, well off, and comfortable. When was this? 1955. They didn't have to move around. I mean, they moved. They wanted to move, but they were comfortable. They were good. They were okay. They were fine. They were nice. They were they were rich. And then it says here, they are sophisticated, well-off, and comfortable. And I'm referring more particularly to the Yorùbás, who are the main tribe in the West. In recent years, the Yoruba people and other people of the West have been steered out of a certain easygoing lethargy under the leadership of a vigorous group of intellectuals who want them to face the possibility of a challenge from the vigorous people from the Eastern region. I mean, I could just celebrate the fact that they said we're wealthy, hey, we are good. Thank you very much on YouTube, White Kubo, your might, thank you. I can say, hey, they said we are wealthy, they said we are, and that's good, by the way. We're comfortable. We're not, there was plenty, there was abundance, and there's abundance even now, thank God. But for us as Yoruba people, that's not what, as intellectuals, that's not what to take from this. I think what we should take from this, or we can take that and take something else. We can appreciate the fact that our parents and our forebears were good at home and they had abundance, so they didn't have to move around without need. But the other thing is actually to get us challenged. It says here that in recent years, the Yoruba people, and this began in 1945 with Ekwemo Dudua, and in 1951 with. So he's saying in recent years, the Yoruba people and other people of the West have been steered out of a certain easygoing lethargy under the leadership of a vigorous group of intellectuals who want them to face the possibility of a challenge from the vigorous people from the Eastern region. I'm going to get to that now. I think the job of intellectuals for Yoruba people today is exactly what our fathers had to do in the 1950s. Komata, that's liturgy. That's like a dialectical attitude. That thing that makes you just feel like nothing. When you have no sense of urgency, there's nothing making you feel like building something in your society. You're just chilling like, it's okay now, go later. Yeah, that's what we're doing on Twitter. That's what we're doing on Twitter. But what we need to do, those of us, we come here every day, we're reading books, we're discussing. We should also take it into, we're doing it online. We should also take it offline, where you can actually steer people. Like somebody said earlier, that we're talking to someone at home about certain things, and they had to tell them about who they were as a person. I think it was Bumblebee. When we're talking offline with some people, it's important that we don't just chill and say it doesn't really matter, everybody will be all right. Everybody will not be all right if we don't work towards it. So what the intellectuals did back then was to steer your people and say, there's something you can do. This Nigeria is our own as well. This is what we are supposed to do in our own region. And the primary people that did that were folks in Action Group. especially with the movement that started in 1945 and was established in Lagos in 1947-48. Ife and Lagos 47-48. That's Egbe Dua. So I believe that we are the ones who have to do the same thing today, where we don't just chill and say, let's have party and enjoy. But while we are having parties and enjoying, if you are into that kind of thing, you also don't just then he mentioned that they are the Eastern region. Who is that vigorous group in 1955? The same ones who were threatening to fight Yoruba people, Yoruba land in 1948, the Igbos. Why did they call them a vigorous group? Is it because they were richer or educated? No. The answer is here. Let me read to you now. The East, unlike the other two regions, is not at all feudal. They have chiefs of a sort, but the fact is that when the British administration took over there was no indigenous authority higher than the head of an extended family or small clan. And that shows in the way they play politics and the way they speak. There's no sophistication, there's no craft, there's no statecraft. We just talk. It is well. When it comes to negotiations and stuff, if you don't vote for PTB, you are a hater of Nigeria, you are Kiniko, there is no tact. But the good part is that at least you don't have to have a king, so everybody can make their own decisions and everybody was their boss in a way. In the Eastern region, there is pressure of population on poor soils. What's the source of this reading? I mentioned it earlier. Okay, I didn't mention the source. The royal. That's the source. Okay. The Royal Institute of International Affairs, Chatham House, 10 St. James's Square, London. Romeo Black says, I thought they were Asian people. They could be Asian people, but Asian people does not mean that your land is good. Anyway, it says here, there is pressure on poor soils. I want to read something very quickly. It's from the Willings Commission report of 1958, and it says something that I think will help us understand this a bit better. Of the Eastern region are Igbo, and by the way, this is 3 years after the speech we're reading, which that was 55, this is 58. There are nearly 5 million of them, and they are too many for the soil to support. They are vigorous and intelligent and have pushed outward in every direction, seeking a livelihood by trade or in service in the surrounding areas of the Eastern region, in the Western region, in the North, and outside Nigeria. Those two words, the soil, the quality of the soil, and the population on one hand, and then vigorous on the other. So let's go back to the speech by Macpherson. It says, in the Eastern region, there is pressure of population on poor soils, and the dominant tribe in the East, the Igbos, who are a vigorous, thrustful, pushful people, avid for education, would like to have a Lebensraum. Now that Oyibo, a Lebensraum is German, by the way. I want to read to you what Lebensraum means so that you understand all this Yoruba people that always shouting unity, unity because you are hearing somebody from the East say it. You don't, with all due respect, you don't know what you're talking about. Let me read to you what Lebensraum means. Essentially, it's living space in German. Lebensraum, German for living space, is a political concept developed around 1901 by Frederick Ratzel, advocating that a nation needs adequate territory to grow It became a central aggressive tenet of Nazi ideology, justifying expansionism, the pursuit of resources, and the colonization of Eastern Europe. Lebensraum. Thank you, Remiga. German. I'll read it again. Lebensraum, German for living space, is a political concept developed around 1901 by Friedrich Ratzel, advocating that a nation needs adequate territory to grow. Ilem Godofe. It needs adequate territory to grow, flourish, and achieve self-sufficiency. It became a central aggressive tenet of Nazi ideology, justifying expansionism, the pursuit of resources, and the colonization of Eastern Europe. In other words, you can't really understand that thing without even understanding that. If you want to understand ideology, you need to also understand this concept. When people moved out, that is the reason for indigenous bill. This thing I'm talking about in 1955 is the reason for that indigenous bill that we killed last year. And I cannot promise it's not going to come back. There's need for living spaces. Why? Is it because they are bad? It's not about good or bad. There's a reason for that. The reason is one word. The reason in Williams Commission report says there are too. Let me read it. There are too many for the land to support. So it says, let me read it exactly the way they wrote it. It says there are nearly 5 million of them, and there are too many for the soil to support. Therefore, what do you want? Living space. There's something quite interesting. What dominant tribe in the east, the Igbos, are a vigorous, thrustful. That's what Majiparam was saying. Majiparam, I've quoted that thing a number of times. 20th October 1960, in a publication called The Listener in the UK, Majiparam said that the Igbos are the main force for unity in Nigeria. And I was like, oh, this is good, until I read the next line. It said they need unity. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because if you don't understand what unity actually really means to certain people, you will get caught up in their own definition of that. Like, let's unite for what? Resources and land. And we also read about how it started in 1901. And I want to say something without going deep into it. If you study the propaganda tactics of the eastern region of the Igbos before and during the war, if you want to look for the source of the things they did, you've got to go to Germany. And you'll find the source on both sides. You find it on the German side and on the victim side, the Holocaust. You'll find they used both tactics. It's quite interesting what they did. And the sad part is that people are still living that life. The beautiful thing for Germans is that they moved past it. The crazy thing for these folks is that it's still there. Number one, you have the master race ideology, the Aryan race. And that they didn't even have to wait for, that came out of Nazi Germany. That was the reason for Azikwe's speech of 1949. I've been talking about that speech for a bit, and I think I should actually read it. I talked about it yesterday as well, but I didn't really get into it. I don't have to read, I can quote it. It says, God has specially created, he said, the God of Africa has specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. This was in June of 1949 in Abba. He was talking to Igbo people. This is the same person that tells you that we are one. I was listening to Chief Bode George this morning. Thank God for our Lord. Thank God for our Lord. If there was no AG, I shudder at the thought of what Yoruba land would be now. I listened to him, the way he was talking about Zik, I was like, how? Oh, Papa. I'm like, let me read something to you. Good friend, Renaissance Africa. This book was published in 1934. Remember, we're just knowing our neighbors. We talked about the North. We talked about feudalism and the issue with education. Let me read to you what Azikiwe said in 1934. This book is called The Renaissance Africa. This was his first book, published when he was 30 years old. And this is the lamba he gave us till the end of days. It was just lambaing us, right? He will give you lamba, but when they have their own meetings, they not talk about controversy. But for when yoku, and for lamba bele. Only let the Renaissance African take upon himself the burden of looking at his fellow African as a man. Nothing more, nothing less. Tribal appellations cause tribal idiosyncrasies. These lead ultimately to vanity and superciliousness and disharmony. A regenerated social order must come. Fanti or Ga, Temne or Mende, Yoruba or Igbo, Bantu or Tuareg, Africans, all are human beings. A man's a man for that. We are the same. No ethnicity, no tribal idiosyncrasies, in fact, no tribal appellations. Don't even be calling anybody Yoruba or Igbo or anything. We are the same. And then he said this in June, published first week of July in West African Pilot of 1949, where he said, the God of Africa specially created this one group, but we're not supposed to be Yoruba or Igbo now. We're supposed to be all Africans, all human beings. Why is God specially creating your own ethnicity? Are you the Aryan race? Is there something you didn't tell us when you were, talking to us about the greatness of Africa and Pan-Africanism and all those things? What's changed? Nothing changed. This was the idea from the beginning. I'm going to tell all of you that we are one. I'm going to tell my own people that we are the ones. God of Africa, the God of Africa has specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. By the way, if you read Zeke's book, Collected Speeches of I just read now, you will not see it there. They changed it. Let me find it for you. I think I had it open some days ago. You will Marisha Mambo Baby. You will not find that thing. They've changed it. Between 1949 and 1961, you had 12 years. In those 12 years, they edited the speech that Zeke gave and published in his own newspaper and made it something else. I'll read to you what they said, he said, or what he claimed to have said, even though they did not burn the West African Pilot paper that published the ethnic superiority that they had talked about in 1949. We are going back to Lebensstrom. No, not this one. Not this one. Mbo. Someone said they know what they are doing. Of course they do. Of course. Oh, this is Mbo. I'll find it. I will find it. So the book is a bit bulky, and I didn't bookmark that page. Bumblebee is up with tactics in Kine. Tactics ni. Bumble. I'm going to read to you what they published in 1961, so that if you go and look for that book, I can assure you, because I have the book, so I'm reading it from the book. If you read that book, this is what you're going to find. Give me a second. Yeah. Fourth paragraph. It would appear that God has specially created the Igbo people to suffer persecution and be victimized because of their resolute will to live. Since suffering is the label of our tribe, we can afford to be sacrificed for the ultimate redemption of the children of Africa. You know what? Let me just read it, because I don't even know how to. Mombo, I want to open another book so that I can't jump in any. It's amazing. It gutted and is tribalistic and so on and so forth. If you listen, you are done for. Give me a second. This is beautiful. Good. So let's read what they published in 61, and then we'll read the original stuff. Then we'll go back to what Macpherson said. Zeke said, it would appear, Zeke edited what he said. So this is not the original statement, just to be clear. So he wrote here, it would appear that God has specially created the Igbo people to suffer persecution and be victimized because of their resolute will to live. Since suffering is the label of our tribe, we can afford to be sacrificed for the ultimate redemption of the children of Africa because they are what? The Messiah. That's our Jesus. Be sacrificed. You are that altruistic? Wonderful. Is it not fortunate that the Igbo are among the few remnants of indigenous African nations who are still not spoliated by the artificial niceties of Western materialism? Is it not historically significant that throughout the glorious history of Africa, the Igbo is one of the select few? I apologize. I can't read to this. This guy is rewriting history in real time. Can't believe it. But let me read to you what he wrote. Is it not historically significant that throughout the glorious history of Africa, the Igbo is one of the select few to have escaped the humiliation of a conqueror's sword or to be a victim of Carthaginian treaty? Search through the records of African history. Go and verify. Search through the records of African history, and you will fail to find an occasion when in any pitched battle, any African nation has either marched across Igbo territory or subjected the Igbo nation to a humiliating conquest. Ha! If you guys hear this now, what would they now say about life now? If Bini hear this, what they go talk? Hey! Lamba. I like the man has number. Search through. You know when you say go and ask anybody, or go and verify. Now what is it they tell us with this? Search through the records of African history, and you will fail to find an occasion when in any pitched battle, any African humiliating conquest. Ha! You know what? When you say ha, why am I saying ha? When say ha, I'll come back to this, but I need you to understand why I'm saying ha. I'll play you something. But I want you to hear it. I don't want to say it. If I say be like something. Give me a second. Promise you I'm going to find that video. You have to, because if we just continue reading, praise God. God is good though. All we are just trying to do is to know ourselves, and God is good. Take a listen to this Reverend Father. We played one Reverend Father the other day that was talking absolute hogwash. This one is level-headed. Not because he's favoring what I'm saying, no, But because I learned from him, after listening to this man, and I went to read, I'm like, see what we know. So take a listen to this.
In the 17th century, I've told this story many times, because that we don't have a historical approach to our problems. In the late 17th century, the Jukun put pressure on the Igalas on the northern border and pushed the Igala southwards. And the Ata of Igala, the ruler of Igala, was a very powerful man, and he moved southwards. And when the Ata of Igala moved southwards, he conquered most of northern Igbo land, from Mbaneki Igbo Nsukka now, right down to Asaba. And the Ata of Igala used religion as an instrument of colonization. It was religious colonialism. He introduced his priests until about 50 years ago. No, Bondi Garana Batama, Mobondi Garana Bihatama, Malile Donsaka, Uno Bondana. Go and research. Malile Shin Sakash, none in Sakashi Gara, most of them, except Enyang Wezishto Kabiama, no Kukechi Ezechabiama. Enyang Wezishto Kenana go and Utubo, O Kukenana go and Nimulo. Go and research. You are fathers. Mandos all Lady Arabia, Odo by an evil cult. Or Mabe Akatakpa. Okay, all those ones. We are parts of the 9 royal masquerades of the Ata that he used to enforce discipline and collect taxes. In Azano Bominal, Amutari Amuta, and Ihobiarbaro, Alama, the police is now doing the work that Oriopa and Akatakpa we are doing before. Of Igara, the present Atas are Christians. Ata lagde, Burundu Bay lagde, Anando Chufunanya Ata Igara and the Bay Bundocha. The colonial masters and the Christian missionaries redeemed us from the slavery of the Ata of Igara and his men. But up till now, the royal masquerades that he used to terrorize us are still in Nsukka.
Search through the records of history, search through the records of African history, and you will fail to find an occasion when in any pitched battle, any African nation has either marched across Igbo territory or subjected the Igbo nation to a humiliating conquest. Instead, there is record to show that the martial prowess of the Igbo at all stages of human history has rivaled them not only to survive persecution, but also to adapt themselves to the role thus thrust upon them by history of preserving all that is best and most noble in African culture and tradition. Placed in this high estate, the Igbo cannot shirk the responsibility conferred on it by its manifest destiny. That's from the US. Having undergone a course of suffering, the Igbo must therefore enter into its heritage by asserting its birthright without apologies. I don't want to speak on that Igala thing. I think we've heard enough. You know how you sit down and you create history for yourself? You see people just do it on social media, just say something, we are the Kinikon. They started it. The young ones you are insulting, they are just carrying on with the tradition. We're going to go back to where we started. So he said, it would appear that God has specially created the Igbo people to suffer persecution. That's what he now edited here. By the way, someone on YouTube, White Ikobo says, why didn't Azikiwe just apologize for what he said instead of editing it? Maybe because he thought that the newspapers that he sold at this time would have been burnt by people. So let me read to you what he said exactly. He did not say God has specially created them to suffer persecution. This is what he actually said. It should appear that the God of Africa has specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. Now, he also said, the martial prowess of the Igbo nation at all stages of human history has enabled them not only to conquer others, I'm wondering who did they conquer? Not only to conquer others, but also to adapt themselves to the role of preserver. The Igbo nation cannot shirk its responsibility. Politically, you have seen with your own eyes how you were disenfranchised by the British. The Igbo nation has never been represented in the Executive Council. Economically, the Igbo nation has labored under onerous taxation measures. That one is also in the other one, in the speech. They didn't remove that one, but they removed two things. Number one, that they were superior to other races. Number two, that they have a responsibility not only to conquer people, or sorry, that they have a history of not just conquering people, but also preserving. Therefore, they have to preserve the continent. You see, when people form things like this, you now have to go back to where they got it from. It's Nazi ideology. That's why you talk to a person, you've never said two things. You hear, I am better than you. And there's something I've also noticed from folks who have mixed parentage, and with all due respect, there's nothing wrong with mixed parentage. I believe that if you have parents from different ethnicities, you can have the best of both worlds. It just appears that in certain places, once they marry another, especially if they marry Yoruba people, they will find a way to destroy the Yoruba heritage and elevate their own. And so the child is confused. And so the child uses words like they will use. So you see a child, like a boy, it could be in his 20s, a young man who is talking about somebody is a better Yoruba than the other person. It's not even something that we think of in our own culture, but they've taught them that thing. So he's applying it to his father's people. He's more Yoruba than you. I'm a better Nigerian than you. Those kind of things that you're hearing is coming from somewhere. It's coming from Azikiwe, way back in 49, and you have to trace it all the way back to Germany. That's on one hand, superiority of the race, Aryan race. The second one is back to Macpherson. He talked about living spaces. He says they would like to have Lebensraum, or at least opportunity in other parts of the country. For that reason, I think it can be said in general, they are more keen on a united or unified Nigeria that are the people of the other regions. You know, I was having a conversation with some people some time ago, a particular gentleman, I think it was in the UK, man lives in the UK, and he was saying, you've got to understand, this is 20, whatever it was at the time, we've got to move on, have a united Nigeria, let's build a new identity. You know, when they say things like that, if you are not careful and if you're not very educated in the matters of Nigerian history, you would think that the person is telling you what is good for all of us. It's not true. He's not thinking about you. As a matter of fact, it has nothing to do with you. He's thinking only about what he's going to gain, which I say again is the reason for the Indigenous Bill. Indigenous Bill has nothing to offer anybody but folks who have little land. We've read 2 books on that already. Willing submission says the land is too small. The soil is too small to support the people. In other words, there are too many for the soil to support. That's the exact phrase. There are too many for the soil to support. And this man is saying here that the population is so I was listening to it yesterday while I was driving. The population is so there are so many for the land, therefore they have to move out. And when they go out, they see people just chilling in their homes, and they say like, these ones are just lazy. By the way, whenever you hear things like your people are lazy, the person saying it is a person who literally just arrived in your place and discovered that, why are you guys just chilling? I mean, you work, but you are not hustling like fake, just creating things, doing like jama. You know, everybody does this thing. Even in the UK, we do it. I mean, you know, you know that when you go, if you compare yourself with the natives, excuse me, if you compare yourself with the natives in England, you'll be like, I just want chill, right? You can do like 2, 3, 4 jobs. Meanwhile, somebody, I mean, it's bad to be depending on benefits, by the way, but the point is the person can just stay on one job and they're good. If you think that they are lazy because you are doing like 3, 4 jobs, it's because you are thinking like an outsider. You are thinking like an outsider. Once you get in the mind of Antonile, you will calm down, you will prosper. But that giri that's making you say they're lazy. That's why you notice that you go all over the place. You hear people say things like Benin people are lazy, Akwa Ibom are lazy, Yorùbá are lazy, South Africans are lazy, Ghanaians are lazy. How can everybody be lazy but you're the strongest one? Meanwhile, what do you have to show for it? That thing comes from that need, and there's nothing wrong with it. The need to succeed, because you know how, in Yoruba land we say omobile sheri, omoboje filesi lesi. So you have to do what you have to do. But let me also say this: the Yoruba people who also move to the UK or the US, but they don't have that mindset when they travel, because boche filesi and the way the mind works. And there's nothing wrong whether you also, let me even say this, if you take some courses before traveling, things might be a bit easier. Not that it's guaranteed, but it might be a bit easier for you to integrate the society because you have taken some courses in certain fields before traveling. Some people do that. I have many examples, especially in the IT field. Even in nursing, I mean, but particularly IT. You take some courses, you travel abroad, the giragirayema koni po bi pe meanwhile, the person will say, what can I do to make money? There's nothing wrong with it. The real problem is when that person looks down on the owners of the land and say, all these people don't know anything. We are the ones that are building this. We developed it. Imagine a Yoruba man who has been in the UK since 1940s or 1950s. Look around and say, we developed England. You will know that that person is crazy. That's what you hear in Nigeria. It's madness. And I have videos, even elders saying we created, this one did not even just say we developed, we created Lagos, we created Abuja, we created Meduguri, we created so and so, we created Port Harcourt, they created everywhere.
Igbos created Lagos, Igbos created Abuja, Igbos created Kaduna, Kano, most of the country, Port Harcourt.
They created everywhere. That thing that is pushing you, that's making you go out, is not altruism, it's survival. And is it bad? No. It's not bad. It's what you see in different parts of the world. It's just that you go and start telling people that you are trying to help them. Who, unless you're a missionary, you don't travel to help the people in the country you are going to. You go there to take advantage of the opportunities there. And there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody does it. Even some whites travel to Nigeria to take advantage of opportunities that we may not even be seeing. But they didn't come here to save us. Anyway, so it says here, we're almost done. They would like to have Leberstrom or at least opportunity in other parts of the country. For that reason, I think it can be said that in general, I want to pause and say something. I saw something that Tidan wrote. There are many people who have mixed heritage as well, who are better, because it's important to also mention this, and so it doesn't look like we are on one side. I saw something in the comment section earlier. Let me quickly speak on it. There are people who also have mixed heritage who are balanced, though. I should mention that. There are people who actually understand that concept of the best of both worlds. They exist, and I've met them as well. It just looks like the ones that are the thorn in our flesh are more. It's like when people say things like, if you notice, I don't usually say it like, I have Igbo friends, because it sounds like a white person says they have black friends. And trying to use to justify whatever. I don't have to justify anything. Using Igbo friends is unnecessary. But I do have them, and they are good folks. But why don't I mention them? Because number one, I don't want you to think, I don't want to water down what I'm saying by saying that, don't think I'm a bad person. No, I actually have good Igbo friends. Of course I have Igbo friends. Of course I have good people around me who are Igbos. Of course. Of course there are people who have raised their children and they are able to move around with sense. Of course. But does that change the fact that there was actually a plan to destroy my region by people from that place? And the fact that the idea of Lebanstrom still raised its ugly head in the Indigenous Bill of last year. That's why I say this conversation is not about hate. It's not about, I don't like these people, all these people, they are bad, everybody there is bad. No, they are good people. There are good people everywhere. It's not about the people. It's not about even individuals. It's about a culture. And here's the sad part, which is where I think a lot of people find themselves in this conundrum, because they want to accept what you're saying, but they're like, I'm not like that. The point is, because, and I have to find a way to say this, because the society looked up, and this is the same thing in many cultures, looked up to the educated elites in every society. I mean, let's stay in Nigeria. Majority of our societies looked up to educated elites. Okay, the educated elites were the ones they looked up to. But you see, in Yoruba land, we didn't just look up to educated elites. We also have the religious folks. We had the religious elites. We have the traditional elites. We had our own structure and society. So you also have to plug in. Here's the thing. Everything I'm reading right now, and that my person is saying, it's not like every Igbo person gathered in one village and said, this is what we're going to do to Nigeria. No. It is that those who were supposed to be the elites of society had a plan. This is 55. This was 11 years after their plan. Okay? They had a plan, and they had a way they moved, and they influenced the generality of their people, so that when you listen to an average Igbo person speak, he would not have spoken like that in the 1920s. He would not. But he has listened to the educated people who are supposed to know better than him. I'm talking about his grandfather, his great-grandfather, his father. They've heard it over and over again. They have a right to Nigeria. They can move anywhere they like. That thing is coming from, you don't hear it from the thief man. You don't hear it from the Ijo man. You don't hear it from Efik or Ibibio. So what do you think is happening? It's culture. And it was formed by folks who thought that they had seen the world and they wanted to take advantage of other people's spaces. And the way to do it was to preach unity. I want unity. I love the idea of unity. Let's unite. Good people, great nation. But this is not unity. This is stealing. This is, like the article I read earlier, this is the Nazi way of expanding. This thing I'm about to read is a speech. It was a meeting, actually, but there was a speech that was delivered at that meeting. The meeting. So it says here, we're almost done. They would like to have Lebanstrom, or at least opportunity in other parts of the country. For that reason, I think it can be said that in general, I want to pause and say something. I saw something that Tida wrote. There are many people who have mixed elites in every society. I mean, let's stay in Nigeria. Majority of our societies looked up to educated elites. Okay? The educated elites were the ones they looked up to. But you see, in Yoruba land, we didn't just look up to educated elites. We also have the religious folks. We had the religious elites. We have the traditional elites. We had our own structure and society. So you also have to plug in. Here's the thing. Everything I'm reading right now, and that my person is saying, it's not like every Igbo person gathered in one village and said, this is what we're going to do to Nigeria. No. It is that those who were supposed to be the elites of society had a plan. This is 55. This was 11 years after their plan. Okay? They had a plan, and they had a way they moved, and they influenced the generality of their people, so that when you listen to an average Igbo person speak, he would not have spoken like that in the 1920s. He would not. But he has listened to the educated people who are supposed to know better than him. I'm talking about his grandfather, his great-grandfather, his father. They've heard it over and over again. They have a right to Nigeria. They can move anywhere they like. That thing is coming from, you don't hear it from the thief man. You don't hear it from the Ijo man. You don't hear it from Efik or Ibibio. So what do you think is happening? It's culture. And it was formed by folks who thought that they had seen the world and they wanted to take advantage of other people's spaces. And the way to do it was to preach unity. I want unity. I love the idea of unity. Let's unite. Good people, great nation. But this is not unity. This is stealing. This is, like the article I read earlier, this is the Nazi way of expanding. There's a video somebody played last week. I didn't want to talk about it because it's not directly something that concerns me. But the animal people are very angry. I mean, the ones that shared it, they were very angry. Because the guy was just, 2 videos actually. Who sent those videos to me? There are good people that send videos to me. God bless you. Across all platforms, people send me videos. So I also know what's in the happen outside my space. So thank you very much for informing me and for helping me stay informed. There's this video where someone was saying, Anioma must be the 6th state of the Southeast. Is Lebensraum. Anioma must be the 6th state of the Southeast. It has 6,200 kilometers. The guy was like, wait, we don't even know the size of our land. These guys clearly know that we are 6,200 kilometers square. We didn't even know. What about Ashire?
This is an Igbo person. Every video is about Anioma State. Tell me what concerns him.
Anioma happens to be about 6,200 square kilometers. So bringing such landmarks to the Southeast is an integration. You are adding.
Expansionism. Our 6,200 kilometers, they want to add this. Add it to their small dots in the middle.
You are adding more. You are integrating more land, more population, more economic capacity.
Land mass, population, economic activity.
More political strength to the South.
More political strength to you. Our land mass, they want to grab it. This guy's listed like 5 things now they want to benefit. And it's not only him. There are hundreds of them doing videos like this.
They're 6,200 kilometers square. By the time you add them to our region, we'll be big enough. Then we'll have water. Then we'll have oil. Then we'll have allocation. Not one of them. 2 of them were saying the same thing, but neither of them mentioned the people of the land. We've talked about Ijebu State here before. Ife State, Ife-Ijesha State, Ijebu State. Which one? Warri State. We've had conversations about those things like that. You cannot have those conversations without talking about the people of the land. We're talking about, okay, if the Warri does this, if the Ishekiris get this, they'll be able to do this with folks in Elijah. It's like goodwill towards them. No, this is not what this is about. Take them, add them to us. Even though they're not in our region, we must do it again. We must take so that we can get, so that we can take, so that we can get. You think it's unity. It's not. I'm going to wrap up with, I've read this thing a number of times, but I will read these things again. Again, this is not to everybody. So I don't hate anybody. I don't know why I'm saying it, because, by the way, people have been sending death threats. Wait, do you guys know that if you send things like that, you would just kill yourself? Like your days will be short. Because I see it everywhere. I see it on TikTok, I see it on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube. Death threats. You guys have mine though. You will waste away. People that are sending the threats, people I'm talking to. And some of them will be talking as if they have power of life and death. The person that is sending you death threat can easily die the night before they come and execute whatever they want to execute. I can't even execute anything. Just waste away. I don't know why they're always saying that thing. But that's what I'm saying. I don't hate you. I'm saying that the conversation is primarily to Yoruba people to understand and to Nigerians. When you hear this thing of remove state of origin, we have gone beyond the level of, I saw a video, we've gone beyond the level of state of origin. Let's have state of residence. You're a Yoruba person, you are supporting that. You say it means unity because America does something like that. Ha. Listen, what's your benefit when you have state of origin? I said when you have state of residence, what's the benefit that accrues to you as an individual? Then the person who is pushing it, how's that person, what's the benefit that accrues to them? Forget whether it's good or bad. Just ask those questions. What are you going to gain from this thing you're pushing? What am I going to gain from this thing you're pushing? I know the sad thing is very sad. The sad thing is I discovered that he has everything to gain. You have everything to lose. I've never seen anybody that goes to negotiate with that mindset. Winner takes all. And let me tell you what's crazy. If something happens in this state of residence, the person will go back to the state of origin. If also Abiola happens like in 1993, everybody goes back home. Everybody knows where their home is now. Yeah, the one doing good people, great nation. People will rush back home because everybody knows where they are from. And if you're a minority, again, like I always say, minority is not an insult. It's just like the numbers are not as many as the big ethnicities in Nigeria. Your own is even, they'll just move into that place. Before you know it, will be the bigger ones, right, will begin to determine who your king will be in your state, in your town. Because after all, we're all from the same place. We're all indigenous after 10 years. And before you know it, what will I do? I'm just going to, there's a particular thing that came to mind right now. I'm not going to mention his name because if I do, it's going to take us into something else. It's something that happened in Europe. I just send people to different towns. I just send them, all of us will be indigenous of different places. Then we'll gather in our original hometown to determine what will happen across the country. People are very smart though. But the assumption that all of us are stupid was actually quite funny. I'm going to read, I think you have some people want to come up. You're going to come up very soon. Just let me wrap up. God bless everybody, you know. And by the way, because I thought was Shefun. It's important to also be it's important to be mentioning this thing. There's nobody that God has not blessed in this country. The Igbos are blessed though. You know how life is. If you're always thinking about what you don't have, you don't appreciate what you possess. And it's a general rule. God can put something in your hand, and this is personal for all of us, it's a lesson for us. God can put something in your hand that you can use to build like fantastic stuff. But you're looking at the fantastic stuff that others have. You think that's what you need to build. But you don't need that. You need what you have. Just use what you have. You say, where's seaport? Where's access to sea? They hate us. Indigenous bill. I must be an indigenous of another person's land. And I'm saying it because think about the gap between 1955 and 2025. How many years is that? 70 years. And the thing still came back. So if you're one of those people who say, why is he always talking about this thing? Because it doesn't go away. It's an idea. Ideas don't die. Unless, of course, the owner of that idea is able to recreate it. Idea is like energy. It doesn't die. You have to find a way to transform that idea, to reform it, so to speak. But it's the duty of the person who owns that idea. Have you ever thought about why people are still fighting for Biafra? Despite the fact that there was loss in between 67 and 1970. It's an idea. It doesn't die. You're going to have many cannons that will rise in the southeast. Why? There's an idea of Biafra. There's a promise that has not been kept, and they want to be the generation that will keep it. And if it goes on for the next 200 years, they'll keep rising until people within introspect and say, you know what? Let's try and rechannel this energy into something else. That's when they will win. By the way, that's an advice. Free consultation. Can you imagine? Nobody paid for that. I should be charging folks that but really, I'm serious about it though. Ideas don't die. There's a movie I'm always recommending if you want to know, if you want to really enjoy the idea of ideas and how ideas work. It's a fantastic movie. I don't know if anybody has watched it. I've talked about it several times. I'm sure people here must have seen it. It's a movie by Chris Nolan. It's called Inception. You should watch that movie. It might take you like one. You have to watch it more than once to get it. The person was like, "I watched it only once and I got it." Then I asked, "So the man in the final scene, was it dreaming or was he awake?" I was like, "What are you talking about? Was it dreaming or was he awake?" He didn't know. She didn't know. It was a girl. She didn't know. I was like, "Okay, watch it again." might take like at least twice, I think. Some people may have to watch it more. The point is just that it tells you how ideas are formed and how ideas don't die. So I'm praying for the South sincerely from my heart that God will raise people in that region that will help them rechannel and repurpose this energy that they have in that region. And I'm praying that prayer because, number one, I love everybody. Number two, Sherry, some people, if you don't pray for them, when they get in Kinikon, it will affect you too. See the throngs of people besieging the Southwest. You saw the videos over the weekend, during the week, you saw the videos. Buses and buses of people from the Southeast moving into, this one was even Ibadan. There was one in Ibadan. The videos in different parts of Yorùbá land moving in. You'll be like, because it used to be that people are fleeing Boko Haram, they're leaving the north. Now they're moving from the south. So if there's peace at home, they don't have to move that much. If there's abundance at home, God, there's nothing God cannot do. There are billionaires in the east now, aren't there? So God can bless the land too and let them succeed, so that the pressure on infrastructure is not as much, and will not be hearing Lagos is smelly. And by the way, if you're always littering and throwing dirt all around the place, please, public service announcement, stop throwing things around. Though it was Ogun State, free spirits, thank you. They're also in Ondo State, they're all over the place. But if God blesses people at home, they won't have to move like that now. And God will bless them. God will bless their governors. They will build great states in Jesus' name. Having prayed, I don't even think I want to read what I'm about to read right now, but it's important to still read it. Majid Param's views, which he wrote in the Listener of 20th October 1960, also provide more background information on the state of affairs before independence. She wrote, "Beneath this difficult restraint, regional differences are great. I believe that the Igbo are the main force for unity. They need unity. As the poorest region, they have had," he talked about striking oil, but the oil is actually in minority area, not in Igbo land. "They have had to pour out of their overcrowded forests to seek work all over the other regions." Similar to what you saw in the Willings Commission report. They've had to move out. They are pushful, and they're not pushing out. They're not moving out because they hate anybody or just, it's because they've got to survive. So you do anything that's possible, which is also why you see all these things. EFCC, we say EFCC now, no, NDLEA caught one guy. He's Igbo. You say AKA Ajayi. Ọlọ́run ló máa dá sẹ̀ríà fún. Báyìí kí n sọ jù bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ, Ọlọ́run ló máa dá sẹ̀ríà fún. Ajayi kọ́, Ajadekun ni. Someone said, can we get the publication? I've already mentioned the publication, so you can Google The Listener. That's the name of the paper. It's a publication. It's called The Listener, published 20th October 1960. And that was what Majid Param wrote in there. If you read Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by H.M. Green, Anthony Naro said that the Igbos need Nigeria because it's the only country they have known in this century. They need Nigeria, and they need to be able to trade. Excuse me, I'm paraphrasing, but they need Nigeria in which they need to trade and which they know as their country in this century. You know what, let me find the book and read it to you. You know why? Because it's not good to misquote or quote out of context. It may not be like, say, they make things up. It's not good. Mumbo. Does this reduce any ethnic group at all? The ones I said about the North, does it reduce the North? No. The one I said about us, like I said, they say we are comfortable, we are rich, we are wealthy. That's good. But they also said that people were getting to a point of just chilling, just happy-go-lucky kind of life. And then they said the intellectuals, Yoruba intellectuals, tear them. You know, and that's what we are doing now. They steered their people. So it's not about okay. It says here, Igbos need to work and trade over the whole of Nigeria. which they have always known in this century as their country. They need to work and trade over all of Nigeria. That's the reason for unity. Let's unite. Let's unite. But here's a solution. We don't need that kind of unity. Everybody should maintain their lane, but it doesn't stop you from moving around. Nobody will stop you from traveling. Nobody stops anybody, you know. But you don't have the kind of rights that you're going to have when you're using the idea of Lebensraum, expanding living spaces. It's called expansionist ideas, which was what the animal person was saying. They are trying to expand into our space. That's what the folks in Calabar, Goja Rivers provinces were complaining about. That was what people in southern Cameroon were complaining about in 1948. That's what we're talking about today. It's 2026. Shouldn't like this we go the day. All of this to say that it's important that the government, and those of you who are going to politics and people who are in politics already, or people who are thinking of doing it, it's important to create a structure that actually acknowledges this distinctiveness, or this uniqueness, I should say. That we need to create a structure that recognizes this uniqueness of each group. So what the North needs is not what the South needs. Till today, what Macpherson was talking about in 1955 is still what the North has to work on: education. It's a bit sad that what's really happening is an absolute repetition of the past. It's sad. Makes you feel like crying. It's said the North. In fact, so we're going to end where we started, and then we'll bring people up. Hopefully, it won't take too long. Maybe next 15 minutes we'll be able to close. I'm just going to quickly go through the things that he talked about then. The North, he said, they were backward in Western education. I don't know if they're still backward today, but you can answer that question. So they still have to work on it at least. Even if you say they're not backward, they still have to work on it. The West is the wealthiest. Okay? It's sophisticated. They're well off. They're comfortable. They've had long connection with Europe and Europeans. They're very wealthy because of cocoa, you know. But in recent years, the Yorùbá people and other people of the West have been steered out of a certain easygoing lethargy under the leadership of a vigorous group of intellectuals who want them to face the possibility of a challenge from the vigorous people from the eastern region, because people were moving into Yorùbá land. People were moving into Yorùbá land. Where can you read it? This is from the Royal, you can Google Royal Institute of International Affairs, record of general meeting held at Chatham House. What was I saying? Folks were moving in from the west, from the eastern region, and again, they're not moving in. They're not moving out of eastern region because they hate you or because they love you. They're moving out because they needed to survive. But the folks that own the space have to find a way to make sure that they protect that place, even politically. When you hear things like, "Why can we not become the governor of Lagos?" It's still what you hear in 2026. In other words, if you can't get it with the indigenous bill, why can't we gaslight and manipulate you and guilt trip you into having political power in your land? When people hear us talk, it's not because we're literally just doing what our fathers did in the 1940s and 50s and saying, we are too calm. When I say calm, I'm not talking about violence or anything. I'm saying we are too easygoing. You know, easygoing of, you can be easygoing. You can be easygoing and still be aware, right? For the most part, we just chill. We chill to the point. It's as though we don't mind saying, make the door, just leave the door open, go sleep, assuming that everywhere is just safe. But you know that's dangerous. You can play with your friends, you can love your neighbors as yourself, do all those good things. I think is the right way to live, right? But you can't leave your door open. What if your neighbor wants to do something that is untoward? That's the point of this conversation. So the North had an issue with education and also with religion. They mentioned in this book. The West, these ones are easygoing, and they had this thing about lethargy, just chilling. The way our fathers got us to say, guys, you can't have a situation where in 1951, Zeke For all our tribalism, Zik won Lagos in 1951. No, not Lagos State, by the way. He won a seat in Lagos to represent Lagos in Ibadan, the Western Region Parliament. At the time, Lagos had a deputy mayor, Mbono Ojike, who was Igbo. Zik was in Ibadan in 1951 in the parliament. He won and he was a member. The only thing he did not get was the majority seats to make him leader of business government and later on become premier. He didn't get that one because how? People have to wake up and say, wait, this guy who wrote in 1938 that the Igbos were better than everybody, they were going to school, he did study in 1938. Oh, but by 1948, the NASA responded. In 1940, he said, "Oh, the children that came to play football in Lagos from Onitsha, they had exceptionally developed brains." It's there. He published it in his own newspaper, West African Pilot. The Igbo, these were young boys who played the football match. Zik said they won because they had exceptionally developed brains. So the ones in Lagos, their brain was not developed. That was 1940. The same person, by 1941, caused a division, and I was reading a speech on what he said, and I was like, why are you talking as if you're not the one that said the original one? The man is always like this. He was the one who said, oh, the reason they didn't want Akisanya to represent NYM was because he was from Ijebu. He introduced tribalism into Nigerian political discourse in 1941. I mean, father of the nation, 500 naira note, respect. But let's talk about what really happened. And that action destroyed NYM. They were going to stone Awolowo, even Awolowo's own people. Fellow Ijebu were saying, this one is this Awo is supporting. Guess who was supporting? An Ijo man. That's a tribalist though. Awo, the Yoruba man, is supporting an Ijo man, and he is a tribalist. Against another Ijebu, another Yoruba man, Akisanya, who is his own person, and he's a tribalist. See, propaganda does not require sense. You don't have to be smart, just have to talk nonsense. People just believe, okay, so. How can you call that person a tribalist? Meanwhile, the person who introduced the ethnic angle to that political conversation is the one who is Pan-Africa. Are we joking? That stuff. You know what happened eventually? The Ijebus and the Igbos. Zik himself wanted to go into parliament, 1940, 1941, but he lost in NYM. They're the primaries. He lost. And since Tikwe Palamasono, Kakakeku JSC, Avishawadano, since I can't get it, you guys here didn't see me. So he made sure that he put something that destroyed the party. I mean, NSA Koli won, but NYM eventually just disintegrated because of that single crisis. They tried to resuscitate it in the battle, but it never was what it used to be. That same person by 1948 then looked at Yoruba people who had formed Egbe Moduduwa and said to them, like, your group is tribalistic. I'm going to read that before we go because it's important so that you understand why I speak the way I speak. It has nothing to do with it. And I'm saying this because, sincerely, I know that there are Igbo people who listen to me and they are conflicted. Somewhere in their minds, they think I hate them. Some people write me, and I want you to understand the fact that, nah, I don't hate you. I want to read what is, there are two books. I'm going to read Awo's biography. I'm going to read, I'll see if I can let me find it so I can read it. Between the Ethnic and the National by Remi Adekoya. Oh, good. God is good. So let's quickly read this. We'll read the other one later on, but let's start with what happened in June of 1948. I'm going to read from Remi Adekoya's thesis. For most of 1948, the rival papers were involved in a bitter war of words. involving personal attacks, often tainted with ethnic undertones. For instance, in response to Azikiwe's support for the established, you know what, you won't appreciate what I'm about to read if I don't read that one first. So let me read that one. I'll now read, I will explain everything together. But let me first read what Zeke wrote in September. So what happened? Yorùbá people started something called Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà, 1945 in London. Okay? Why did they start it? Because they were disunited. They had fought bitter wars amongst themselves. They had, very 16 years of inter-tribal wars, different tribes within Yorùbá nation. So for many years, they were bickering and having these suspicions amongst themselves, mostly suspicions, not bickering as much. Such suspicions, people were very careful and walk on eggshells around each other, suspecting the other person wants to do something. And it was not going to help us in country like Nigeria, where you're thinking of federalism. So Awo and some of his people, some of his guys, Mabiodo Akerele, some of them decided to form something called Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà in 1945. As soon as they formed that thing, the first group, as a matter of fact, Yorùbá ṣòro àti darí o. Yorùbá ṣòro àti darí o. Yorùbá ṣòro àti darí. Èèyàn ṣòro àti darí generally, but Yorùbá kọ́ ló ń ṣàánú ni. Yorùbá people were writing against how that it was tribalistic. I mean, human beings are difficult to lead, but we are blessed. Yorùbá people said that was tribalistic for establishing Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà in the UK. Meanwhile, that was in 1945. In 1943, Igbo Federal Union was established in the same UK, but it was not tribalistic. Igbos now said what Awo was doing with his people was tribalism, to divide the unity, to divide the ethnicities in Nigeria. They were the members of Igbo Federal Union. They were the leaders, the executives of Igbo Federal Union. They said he was tribalistic. 1945. Guess what Papa said? Let's have a meeting. They published stuff to explain themselves, which I think nobody should ever do again in this life. Explain for who, for what reason, why, how. Anyway, they said we're going to have a meeting on Sunday. They've not had that meeting till today, because they did before that meeting, they said they are not going to be available. So they never had a meeting. That was in 45. Fast forward to 48, this then happened. The reaction of, by the way, if you look at we've talked about I think we should do another session on Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà. There's a fantastic book on that topic. We're going to get into it. It was introduced to me by my mentor. God bless you, sir. He lent me that book when I was having that series on Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà. I want to just say it now. He lent me that book when I was having that series on Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà. I said I was going to need the book, that I should read it. And then when I went to return the book, he said, I didn't want to return it. I was still reading it. And I said, hold it, I found another copy. That's how I got the book. So if he hears this, he knows I'm talking about him. I'm just happy. Can you imagine? It's actually a fantastic book. It was someone's PhD thesis. We're going to discuss one of these days again. Anyway, if you go through the aims and objectives of Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà, the whole idea was summarized in two objectives, right? One has to do with Yoruba people, the other one has to do with Nigeria. With Yoruba people, they were going to have to sponsor, students, children to go to schools, Yoruba land. They were going to democratize or work on, what's the word now? Help with some of the, what do they call these things? Superstitions that we have in Yoruba land to educate our people, right? And also help with the traditional institutions. Those are the kind of things they wanted to do. And also, of course, help, education, health care, and things like that for Yoruba people. And then, on the other hand, they're going to also work with other groups to accomplish the same thing in Nigeria. So that was in 45. Then in 48, and I'm rushing because of time. We're going to have a full session on Ẹgbẹ́ Modùduwà, I promise. Okay? In 40, I'm tempted to read everything. Let me just give you like a summary, because some people will just see this video and it's important for them to have it at the same time. Maybe not everything, but just bullet points. For Yoruba land, they wanted to study fully its political problems, combat the disintegrating forces of tribalism, stamp out discrimination within the group and against minorities, and generally infuse the idea of a single nationality throughout the region. Number 2, to study its economic resources, ascertain its potentialities, and advise as to wisest utilization of its wealth as to ensure abundance and prosperity for its peoples. Number 3, to plan for the improvement of educational facilities, both in content and extent, to explore the means of introducing mass education promptly and efficiently, and to foster the study of Yoruba language, culture, and history. Number 4, to promote the social welfare of Yoruba land, combat the cankerworm of superstition and ignorance, spread the knowledge of medical relief, and stimulate the provision of hospitals, maternity homes, and such like amenities. Number 1, to cooperate in the fullest measure with other regions to see that the aims set out in A, that's the one for Nigeria, are applied to the whole country. Number 2, to aid and encourage similar groups in the other regions in every way possible to achieve these ideals. If you are a human being that has sense, will you not say that this is good? These people, students in London, Papa Awolowo himself, Dr. Onyakele, Abiodun Akele, Akintola Williams, Tunde Rosiji, and others, with Papa founded Egbemoduduwa in 1945. That was the objective. Is that not supposed to be something like, that's what you want to do? We're going to do the same thing where we come from. By 1947, they had something in Ife. Then 48, they established in Lagos, and then they had reduced everything to 2 points as the objectives. Number 1, to encourage, especially by means of scholarship awards by the society, the pursuit of secondary and university education among Yoruba boys and girls. Number 2, to recognize and maintain the monarchical and other similar institutions of Yoruba lands, to plan for their complete enlightenment and democratization. And number 3, to strive earnestly to cooperate with other ethnical associations in matters of common interest to all Nigerians, so as thereby to attain to unity in federation. Our fathers were altruistic. Our fathers were not short-sighted, selfish clowns. They thought about others and how others could also benefit. This is good, Abi. The reaction of Dr. Azikiwe and all his supporters to the newly formed Egbe was violent beyond compare. All the leaders of the Egbe were vilified in Dr. Azikiwe's newspapers. The high water mark of the campaign was reached in the following extract from an editorial article in the Pilot of September 8, 1948. But now that the Egbe, this is what Azikiwe wrote, but now that the Egbe has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally, and even against Igbos as a group, but against the aspirations of 27 million Nigerians backing up the NCNC, I'll tell you what they're doing. He has gone from personal and ethnic to political. So he's going to hide under NCNC to say the Egbe Omoduduwa is doing something against Nigeria, even though he was the president of Igbo Federal Union in that same period. Let's just keep quiet. Let's read. But now that the Egbe has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally, and even against Igbos as a group, but against the aspirations of the 27 million Nigerians backing up the NCNC, the time has come for real action. Henceforth, the cry must be one of battle against the Egbe Omoduduwa, its leaders at home and abroad, uphill and downdale, in the streets of Nigeria and in the residence of its advocates. The Egbe Omoduduwa is the enemy of Nigeria. It must be crushed to the earth. There is no going back until the fascist organization of Sadi Amalakija has been dismembered. This is a man living in Yoruba land, drinking Yoruba water, writing against Yoruba people having their own Yoruba group, while he was leading an Igbo group in Yoruba land. Go figure. As if that was not enough, Zik now did something called Bebe. Somebody say Bebe. I have to laugh to keep from crying, because sometimes I just wonder what kind of mind the person gets to this kind of thing. That person land. Oh, they hate us, they hate us. Oh, they hate us, they love us. They don't love us, they don't hate us. Okay. Let me read to you what the Yoruba people eventually now wrote in 1948. This is a Yoruba person writing in the daily service. The picture that leaves me bewildered, however, is that of Zik. Listen to what Zik did do. Is that of Zik, an out-and-out Igbo, inaugurating a Yoruba Federal Union. It may be said in mitigation that he had but the poorest materials out of which to erect the Yoruba Federal Union, having only managed to scrape together the waifs and strays of the Yoruba race. He had no Yoruba unions to federate, for no Yoruba union would submit to the degradation of being federated by Zik. Nevertheless, the daring of the man is staggering. By attempting to openly create divisions among the Yorubas, he is approaching the 0 hour of his checkered political career. He is playing with the trigger of a loaded gun, the muzzle of which is pointed ominously toward his own forehead. Can anyone imagine a Yoruba man in Onitsha or Nnewi organizing an Igbo federal union? Think about it. You are in Yoruba land, leading Igbo federal union. You are against Yoruba people having Egbe Omodua, but you are working with some Yoruba people to create Yoruba federal union in Yoruba land. Meanwhile, you are a Pan-Africanist that doesn't believe in any ethnicity. That person now comes along in 1951 and says he wants to become something in your parliament. Even won the seat and came to Western region. Guess what? You're in Western region parliament now. What's the next thing? You want to have the majority so that you can become what? The leader of government business where? The place where you said that the people, number one, your own people are the ones that are specially created by God to rule all of us. Number two, these people don't have enough sense to organize themselves to have a go to do it because the organization is fascist. You have to be the one to federate them. I mean, we can all speak. By the way, it was a very good, let me tell you one good thing about him. He was a very good speaker, fantastic orator. I like to tell people good things about people because if I don't, you just be wondering like, what kind of demon will enter into a person to act like this in another person's land? Then you now come and tell me that I want to have unity. And if I say no, I am a bigot. Are you thinking? You see, this conversation is deep. It's not about, oh, he hates me, he's jealous of me. Jealous of what? Hate you for what? Is this unity? Everything I don't read now, everything where I read now, it sounds like Pan-African to you, but now take everything back to his first book in 1934. Was it not the one that was saying that there is no Igbo? In fact, let me read to you because we're going to end on that note. I've been saying we're going to end soon. We're going to end. There's a reason I started speaking like this, and it's not because I hate anybody. I just love my own people to the point where I'm like, we are too lackadaisical. We are too complex. We're just chilling. We don't have financial relations or relation. This is what Zik said in 1934, before he now began to show us real pepper. He said, let the Renaissance African take upon himself the burden of looking at his fellow African as a man, nothing more, nothing less. Tribal appellations cause tribal idiosyncrasies. These lead ultimately to vanity and superciliousness and disharmony. A regenerated social order must come. Fanti or Ga, Temne or Mende, Yoruba or Igbo, Bantu or Tuareg, Bobi or Hausa, Jollof or Kru, all are Africans, all are human beings. A man's a man for that. The man who is saying that a man's a man for that, we are all Africans, is the leader of Igbo Federal Union. You are shouting Federal, Nigeria, Pan-African. You shall be all right. People of God, the point is, the idea of unity is not unity. It's Leberstrom, expanding living spaces. And I'm taking it from the speech by Macpherson in 1955, and I'm telling you, it's the same thing we're going through right now. It's the same reason, I keep repeating, it's the same reason for the Indigenous Bill, and it's the same reason you are hearing things like, why can we not be governor of Lagos? Well, you can't be. You don't even care for the land. You don't care about the people. It's just about ambition. Have you ever seen a person wants to become governor of a place who never talks about what they want to do for the people? Just that we have a right, is our turn. Turn where? How? Election is coming up next year. We've got to Tarawaji. Unity Malo Dibo. I want to have a session. There's something I put on the Telegram channel. It's a Substack article about election rigging in the last cycle, this last electoral cycle. Election rigging. The highest places in the country where the election was Southeast. Not today, we'll talk about it on Monday. But if you want to read it before then, please go on, excuse me. Please go on Redomi Global. Redomi is spelled R-E-D-O-M-I, Redomi Global on Telegram, and check for that Substack article. Read it. It's well done, like proper research, properly put together. Please read it. The person whose region engaged in the greatest, let me not say worst, election rigging is one who call everybody riggers and your president is bad, you are worse, you don't vote for him, you must prove that you're a Nigerian. No true Nigerian can vote for Tinubu. Are you joking? He will win by the grace of God. He will win this next election. So why are you always talking about it? Just talk about history. Are we not serious? Don't you understand the fact that what happened is happening? Forget about your own. Just give it to our own. Are we not united? We are looking for competence. Is it if you're looking for competence, we're looking for China went to China. That's competence. But 90% of his own region voted for him. Your whole region, you split your votes among the three candidates, but you are the bigot. Are we joking in this country? Tinubu lost Lagos. Peter Obi won Lagos, right? Atiku won Osun State. Tinubu won 4 other states. Peter Obi won all the states in his region. He is not the bigot. You, who divided your votes in your region, you are the bigot. And we are apologizing for what? Because you want to be seen as a united nation. You see what I'm saying? It's not about unity. One gaslight in want to get in, and when I can't get in you, want to get in the Jesus army. Thank you for being part of today's session. Oh boy, it's past 9 already. Oh dear. Someone said unity is a two-way street. I'm not going to unite with anyone on their own terms. Yes, I don't mind uniting with people, but it has to be for a reason. So I want to have unity of purpose. What are we uniting on? We want to unite about on this matter. Okay, we'll work together. You do this, I do this. You get this, I get this. We're good. But not all this thing of you must unite with me to get me to have what I want to have, and you have to do it to prove to me that you're united with me. And if you don't do it, you're a bigot. That's what we have been practicing in this country, and that has to stop. As a matter of fact, thank you very much. I'll just read some comments here. All right, folks on YouTube, thank you for being here. You guys are reading some fantastic stuff here. So go and verify. It's a new coinage word now frequently used by them. Yes. Ask anybody. I'm just looking. You have said a lot of things, but over time, your mind says the mass migration from southeast to southwest and other parts was a deliberate plan to overwhelm those regions. They employ mass. The mass. Okay, something about baby factory. I don't want to read it. They plan to overwhelm those regions. Last election, hundreds of thousands of voters' cards were relocated to Lagos. Did you know about it? There were videos from the southeast. Hundreds of, some people say between 200 and 300,000 votes. There was an interview with an INEC official, and that was when I actually really believed. I've seen the videos, I saw videos, but I wanted to actually hear someone in that space, Thomas Soro. Between 200,000 and 300,000 voters' cards were moved into Lagos last election. Any loopholes must be found so that they can get it as well. Nigeria should thank Sam Onyekwere. I didn't want to read that baby factory thing, so don't make me read it though. The guy said Nigeria should thank Indigbo for advancing to global stage. The chest beating never stops. If you think the Igbos are not the cream of the crop, let them go. Nigeria cannot exist without the Igbos. Go and verify. How do you respond to this? Where do we even begin? But God created human beings now. Did he not give all of us the ability to think? How did this happen? I actually know the answer to my question, but God knows. This is the only thing I can say to avoid saying things that... Me first sorrow. You advance Nigeria to the global stage. How? I have so many things I could say. I don't want to talk. But how? If you think the Igbos are not the cream of the crop, let them go. Did anybody hold anybody down? You really want to go? I've said it, there are two things Igbos can do if you want to leave. Get on the bus and move back to your region. Like, nobody's going to stop you. Number two, talk to your representatives. You have 58 of them in Abuja. You have houses of assembly all across Southeast. Tell them to push for inclusion of a bill of secession. A bill for secession. They push for that bill, and then you get what you want. But we should thank you for advancing. Because I'm just dumbfounded. But I say we should go and verify. Go and verify. Go and verify. Thank you very much for listening to that. That was Declassified. Why Hausa, Yorùbá, and Igbo haven't changed since 1955. I hope you enjoyed listening to that. The video, of course, is on our YouTube channel, Busui Ori, so you can always go there and listen again. Also, we have our Spotify account now, so it's also Busui Ori. You can, get to listen to some stuff while maybe driving or doing other chores. All right. I'm just going to read some of the comment sections, some of the comments we have in the comment sections today. But before I do that, there's something I think. So I referenced the book. I didn't tell you the name. I actually talked about the fact that my mentor gave me that book, and I appreciate it a lot because but who knows? Maybe you will find it if you look for it. But we don't have it on Redomi Books. But I got it from the man. The book was written by Eso Arifalo. Interestingly, it was published in 2001, I guess. Yeah, 2001. Eso Arifalo, The Egbe Mojudua, a study in ethnic and cultural nationalism. It was a PhD thesis in Ife, right? And it's a fantastic work that, the man did. So one of these days, we're going to talk about it. And I hope that, we'll be able to use that one to get ourselves back on course. Thank you very much, Jakesman. And let me say this. Jerry sorry. It's not about Igbo. It's actually about what Macpherson said about Yoruba people. One of the things I think people like is we like people that pander to us, and people we like psychophancy. We act as if we don't, but for the most part, human beings like sycophants. You like people that will praise you and will tell you that you're the best thing in sliced bread and peanut butter. Like you are great, you are wonderful. They will just be lying to you, but you to say yes, However, if the person is telling the truth, right, they can tell you the things you're doing right. And hopefully, if you're also a thinking person, you'll be able to actually look around and say, okay, is there anything I can do better? It doesn't mean you are condemning yourself. It's even from destructive criticism. This is not somebody who's trying to pull you down. It's a case of, listen, you're good here, you can do better here. And if you look at that, for us as Yoruba people, he mentioned wealth, he mentioned sophistication, and these things are facts, okay? But he also said something that our intellectuals have had to steer people out of a kind of lethargy. And I think that lethargy is still lurking somewhere. So it's still at work in some way. Which means that essentially, right, in the name of being educated and sophisticated, like I mentioned in the video, what happened in the UK in 1945 is repulsive, is repugnant. And the Achilles and Williams, Akintola Williams, and so on and so forth, and Rosiji and so on, they started Egbe Modudua. Igbos were complaining about Yoruba people having Egbe Modudua. in London, and some Yoruba clowns joined those Igbo people to call their own people tribalists. Meanwhile, the Igbos who are complaining about what the Yoruba people were doing in England had created their own Igbo Federal Union in 1943 in that same London. But we are these people that assume that we know what we are doing because we can speak English. For the most part, we are not aware. If you were an obedient movement last electoral cycle, I want to believe that maybe you didn't know better. So hopefully all of us, our eyes have opened now. I don't think every Yoruba person must be an APC. But at least you can't be doing movement that pull your ethnicity. When you have a person, and people say things like, why can't you have Jerry become governor of Lagos? It's because he cannot. You are using words like Afonja, typical Yoruba, in your conversations on social media, and you're supposed to be Yoruba man. But it's going to give you like this sense of for any credit with I want you to actually prove to them that you are a true Nigerian. And this is the crazy part, right? You're supposed to prove that you're a true Nigerian by denigrating your own, but the other person would actually lift its own, even though his own is actually lower than yours. It's just the way life is. For instance, they found some in Common Hills in the 90s who, thank God for grace and for NCCF and are human beings. It just means that evolutionary journey, like it's going to take them a while to catch up. Doesn't mean that they're lower as Homo sapiens. But what will make them lower than Homo sapiens is if they constantly compare themselves with those who have gone ahead of them maybe centuries or millennia. The crazy part is you always have this set of Yoruba people that come up from time to time. So in 45, they were the ones in London who said, oh, look at this Awo. Awo is they're very tribalistic. How come they're starting Egbe Modudua? And they're saying that because of their friends, who incidentally were leaders of Igbo Federal Union in the same UK. And by 48, when they began Egbe Modudua in Lagos, and Zeke and the rest of his goons began to write against it, he started by saying things like it's not even about against Zeke or against Igbo, but against the 27 million people 27 million Nigerians that are supporting NCNC. Kilagbe Kileju. How is Egbe Modudua against Nigeria or against NCNC or against Igbo people or against Zeke? Who are you? Who do you really think you are that like Yoruba people not going to organize Egbe Modudua because of you? But here, that's not the sad part. The real sad part is that within NCNC, Zeke was able to convince some people. And with them, they went to establish something called Yoruba Federal Union. Imagine, it's even, like I said, it's repugnant. That's why the person that wrote in Daily Service in June 1948 said he only succeeded in getting the waves and strays of Yoruba race because Zeke had no Yoruba group to federate over. And he said, would you imagine a Yoruba man going to Anambra or going to Onitsha or Nnewi to establish an Igbo Federal Union? But here's the point. Right? We sometimes have to be very, very careful of the cracks in our walls, and it's Yoruba people who assume, and for the most part, they are very, very ignorant. They can speak English. They can probably wave a few certificates like they've gone to school, but they have zero social awareness, zero emotional intelligence. I publish a devotional every month. I just want to say something along the lines, just in passing. I publish a devotional every month. We've been doing it for about 6 years now, every month. The article that we put out yesterday talked about EQ being higher than IQ. We talk about intelligence quotient a lot, but Sherry, you can know book and be very intelligent in terms of like you are book smart, but you've got to understand. You have to be aware. Some of the things that we do in the name of law school is actually stupidity because I won't say that in English. I want to read something to you from a book very quickly, just to like buttress one of the points we made in that video. What I'm saying basically is that our job now is literally what our folks did back in the day. Okay, so we talk a lot. We mention or see what these people are doing in our space, not because we have issues with that group of people, but because one, it's easy for them to rakpala war anywhere, because we have a lot of us who will say things like, "But I have friends who are like this," and that's a stupid thing. And let me even say this: suppose you join an army, right? Suppose you join Nigerian army, and there's war between Nigeria and, let me look for a country. I want to look for a country that we can never fight. Let's say Papua New Guinea, okay, or Thailand. So it's very far away. And then you have friends from that country. Would you say that because of your friends, the national interests of Nigeria should be suspended because you have friends from that place and those your friends are good? And I say that to say that we have friends everywhere too. It's not like we are friendless, because all this I have friends that people talk about on social media. It just doesn't make sense to me. We have friends, okay? But if your country is at war with another country, I mean, do you really think that when countries are at war with each other, there is nobody from either country who is actually married to the other person from the other country? Like, you would have that. Were Germans not related with English, some of the English people, when they were having World War? Are you going to now say, oh, because you have some family members, let's just let this thing, let them do whatever they want. Let Hitler win. Let Hitler do whatever he wants to do because there's somebody in my family that is related to him, and my brother's father's uncle, sister, and his brother's friend is that other person's uncle. Makes no sense. The point is, you're literally you are standing up for your ethnicity. And let me say something. These conversations, right? It's the better way of pushback than what happened in the North in 1966. Intellectual pushback Laun Babawa in the 1940s. It actually began in 1948 with daily service. For 10 years, Zik was controlling the narrative, putting Yorùbá people down, talking all kind of rubbish. Yorùbá people just feel like, oh, we'll work with him and everything is okay. Somehow, they will my Jilo like they had the same issue we're having right now. Very carefree about things could really matter until he began to push against everyone to do it. That was when they discovered that, you know what, this guy recently, let me say this. If you've been looking at the news, especially on social media, Twitter particularly, there is something happening again. If you notice, in the last 1 week, a lot of attacks on RCCG. I don't go to Redeemed Christian Church of God. I'm not a member of that church. But let me tell you something. Whenever you see people attacking Redeemed, there's a reason for that. It's not about the church. It's about the ethnicity of the founders. And you know the funny thing, you don't even have to think too deeply. Once they start, at the end of the day, I'm call you Basibe. Like the one I read this evening. Oh, our church in London, Igbo people started all the Redeemed branches there. Then they brought you people there to come and become their pastors. Oh yeah, give us the names of the Igbo pastors that were there. And cricket. Once you start noticing those things, it's not about the church. It's not about the organization. When you start hearing that, oh, Wale Soyinka is not even smart. I saw a 20-year-old actually say that this morning. Was it yesterday? And I was like, see, you may not have read Kogi Harvest. You may not even like Soyinka's books. It has nothing to do with his books. It has nothing to do with his intellect. It's about his ethnicity. It's the same game. And if you are doing that, oh, we are one now, we are one Nigeria, I'm not want to talk about those things, it's a lie. They are going for things. They will go for winners. They will go for deeper life. They go for, they mentioned the pastors. The only reason they didn't attack winners in the last election was because there was that phone call. That was the only reason. What did Redeem do to Obedient Movement? They didn't say no to Obio. They just did not platform him. That was what they didn't do. It wasn't about what they did. It was what they did not do. They did not platform Peter Obi. And because you have not platformed the Messiah, there's something wrong with your organization. A bunch of retards. This is the issue. And you have your people joining that kind of group in the name of trying to keep up with the Joneses. Again, I'm not saying don't join any party against Tinubu. You will lose, like Barrow, logo alone. Tinubu will win. But guess what? I mean, you could have maybe your governor or whatever. I don't even know the governor I want to give out in Southwest because I'm still thinking about it. By the way, I like what I heard about Ogun State recently. Yayi is running an APC platform. That's beautiful. Beautiful. I'm hearing finny about Lagos. I want to hear that. I want to have like something concrete before I speak on it. But the point I'm trying to make is that you can join any political party, right? APCO. I was going to say ADC, but I don't even know what to say about that one. But you can join if you like. Here's the point. Join anything you want to join. ADC, APC, SDP, LP, AOY, OQ, OUIO, NNPC, NNPP, anything you like, join. But you cannot, in good conscience, be a part of a group that denigrates your own race. And here's one funny thing. If you're an obedient movement, you would never criticize IPOB. Not Igbo people, though. Not Igbo people. They don't criticize IPOB. Why? Because the Lord and Messiah has said that they are his brothers. And you're a Yoruba person, and then you sit down, you hear a person criticizing Tunde Onakoya. I saw that one yesterday. Yoruba person, Yoruba boy, criticizing Tunde Onakoya, saying that he's a sports ambassador for Ogun State. And so what? Oh no, there is no kosi koshe no so he's working with the government. The same government that you have all your city boys from the east joining, and you have no those people that used to be in obedient movement that joined, you had nothing to say about it. Tunde, and people are now going there and saying that at least he's not collecting any money from the state government, so he's a sports ambassador. There's nothing wrong with it. In my mind, I was like, what if he was collecting money? And so what? So what? It's crazy. Like, you're trying to apologize, and he's not really collecting money from the state government. He's just an ambassador. And so, what if he was collecting? What? And so what? You are pandering, reducing yourself because you're trying to prove that you are who. All of this to say that if your country is fighting another country and it's a just cause, just a war, and you decide that because you have you marry somebody from that other country, or you have friends that you went to school in that country, and you begin to do things to destroy your country, you're a traitor to your race. It's not about speaking English or saying I'm sophisticated. You don't have sense, because what you are doing basically is that you are destroying your children's generation because of a particular emotional connection you have today. And you have your fathers who also did that with Yoruba Federal Union with Azikiwe in Yoruba land. The Azikiwe was saying that he's uncomfortable with Egbe Moduduwa, decided to pick some Yoruba people to create Yoruba Federal Union while he is leading Igbo Federal Union. But he told the Yoruba Federal Union people that, listen guys, it doesn't really matter, ethnicity does not really matter, we're all one Nigeria, after all, we're all Pan-Africanists. Meanwhile, he's leading his Igbo Union and telling them that God has specially created them to lead the rest of the continent. You must be dumb to assume that what this person is saying makes sense, because he's not he's not clean with you. And I hope people get it now, Sha. This is not about hate, and we've not spoken, we're just there is a lot to learn, and we're going to learn together by God's grace. And I hope to have folks come up as well to share their thoughts. It would be nice to all learn together. But the point is, you can't like destroy yourself because you're because you want to prove that you're one. I'm sure I've repeated that a number of times, but it's important. Oh, the man doing because Otoniki and Wara Tamaso and Wakankan, we are close and Wara Biton Shiton Wabai, Otoniku Waria and Wara no le Kokon Sin Con collect. The bad notice that was is more about Yoruba people. Because if it's your McPherson to Kawani, lethargy. By the way, I opened the dictionary to look for, I want to read out what it means. It's important to actually break it down. Lethargy is a state of comatose, as found in sleeping sickness. Lethargy is also inactivity, showing an unusual lack of energy. It's also weakness characterized by lack of vitality or energy. We can't afford to do this in Yoruba land. We can't be talking about what we can do in Yoruba land, and then somebody will come and say, have you thought of, I'll tell you one story. I won't mention the person's name, Gogon, but there was this conversation last week online, and somebody was talking about a particular guy who was a lawmaker, and they were having a conversation about fixing electricity in Nigeria years ago. And the question the man asked the committee was, have you guys thought of generator businessmen? In the meeting of the chief electricity, have you thought of people from my friend's place? You have, and you know the cool thing about Yoruba elders, when you look at their objectives, it's even altruistic. How to make their region good, how to make it a lot better than what it was, and then to also work with other regions to make those regions better. I was talking with my mentors, I think it was earlier this year, last month, or last year, went for an event, and he was telling me about a particular stuff that they did in Dawn Commission, that the Dawn Commission did, and that when Dawn Commission did it, certain state, there's a group from the north, traveled and asked folks in Dawn Commission how they did that thing, and then they tried to tell you how you should also do it in your place. When former governor of Kaduna State, Governor Rufai, when he was going to fix his Oracle database system to match civil servants in Kaduna State, where did he get it from? From Lagos State. In other words, you are not trying to, close people out, but you have a duty to your people first. But you have this bunch of clowns who then tell you as a Yoruba person, why are you even building something for Yoruba? Why can't you just build it for Nigeria? Are we not one? Are you not dumb? That's not unity. That's stupidity, because what's happening is that your charity is not beginning at home. It's beginning across the place, which means it will never happen, which is the main problem with the unitary system we've been practicing since 1966. Everything is one Nigeria. Maybe we'll talk about some of those unitary things and how those things are lies. All of that to say this: as a Yoruba person, love everybody, but protect your home. Don't be weak. Being weak, being lily-livered, where you are not speaking. I'm not saying curse people out or fight people. I'm just saying be firm. This is your home. Why are you apologizing? Why are you tiptoeing? Why are you walking on eggshells? Because you want to offend people. Listen, offense is meta toro or like it doesn't a dime. Anybody can pick offense. It's free and cheap, whichever one they want to. It doesn't matter. As long as you know you're not trying to offend the person, right? And even if you found yourself offending the person, of course, it's okay to apologize. But it's not like I'm offended by what you are doing. I don't care if you're offended. I just don't want to offend you. In other words, I'm not going to go out of my way to offend you. But if you pick offense, that's your business. And that's what your Bible have to be thinking. Okay, and you also won't feel comfortable. And so what? What's my business whether you feel comfortable or not? And why are you talking about it like that? Don't you feel like you too, how? When the home is sorted, right, and it's properly made, everybody will enjoy, even the guests. We are not pushing our guests. We're just saying that there's a way we want to structure our place, and we have a right to do it, not based on, people are coming around and saying this is how we should do it. Odushola Oshinowo on TikTok says, Prof, we should go and see what is happening in England at the moment. Every time I look at England, it's a cursory tale. It's England, in Odushola, you can see it's a lesson for Yoruba people. I remember there's a book on my shelf. The title is what I'm reading. Great Britain Has Fallen. Yes. I'm trying to find it. Don't worry. Shout out the title. Great Britain Has Fallen. I remember reading that book when I was in seminary. Don't worry, I'm trying to find so I can give you the name in case you want to buy. But you can just check it out. It was actually written by a Nigerian man who had been in England as a missionary since the 1980s. And it's titled Great Britain Has Fallen. And the point here is one of the ways to fall is through what they call multiculturalism. For all the faults of some of the politicians in the West, when you hear things like Merry Christmas, it says something to me as a person. You may not see any big deal. But when a politician in the US says Merry Christmas, he says something to Americans. Why? Because in the name of, we want to be inclusive, we are saying happy holidays. Àwọn tó nílẹ̀, nǹkan táwọn ń ṣe, ẹ gbàgbé jàre, we just be saying happy holidays. Why can't you say Merry Christmas to them? And you can still say, you can greet any other region, whatever language they use when they're doing their own. But you have to deprive àwọn tó ní kíní so that it can look good to others. That's the same thing that I think we're also doing in the name of Kiniko is a global village. Anybody that wants to do global village should go and start it in their own village. Okay? And Yoruba land is not anybody's village for experiments. Yoruba land is not laboratory to experiment one Nigeria, multiculturalism, and all this nonsense that never works anywhere else. By the way, I don't know why people don't go to the north. The north is part of Nigeria, or Abi, Beko. And they should try it in the north as well. Now, I'm sure they're going to give them free hand. I just read some of the comment section, some of the things on YouTube. I've spoken a lot, Shao. But thank you very much for listening. Let me just read some of your comments before we go. Mr. Michael Olumola, I think it's Mr. because it's Michael. Prof, please let them stay away from our region. This motive is ulterior. Excuse me. They have an ulterior motive and they're kleptomaniac. The more you allow them in your region, the more they feel. The truth is, the structure of Nigeria right now cannot exclude people. But there's a way you can exclude people. And let me tell you, the people that know how to exclude people the most, folks in the Southeast. You know, somebody sent me a message earlier on Facebook today and said, there are many Yoruba people in Anambra State. I don't know the nonsense person, so I sent him a newspaper clipping where the governor of Anambra State, over 50% of their people live outside their region. But even then, when it comes to jobs, they protect stuff for their own people. They're having job opportunities. You see, state of origin has to be Anambra State. Do I have a problem with that? Absolutely not. I don't. I think it's cool. I think they're protecting their own. But I think when I'm doing it for my own, nobody has any right to be wagging their tails and wagging their tongues and frothing their mouth telling me about tribalism. That's the problem. So you can't really stop people from coming in, but you can limit opportunities for your own people first. It's not even that you want to close the door to everybody, but you can't have people just roaming the streets while you're taking care of other people's children. That was what the Sadana was saying in 1964 with Northernization policy. North first. Those who have problems with that one, that policy, by the way, some people have problem with the policy of the North first in the North. If you have a problem with that policy, you are a thief. Because where you come from, they don't even do region first. They do a particular ethnicity first in the region before others. Then go to other places and say that you should also make it free for all because we are all Nigeria. You continue roll down when you come, but we have to be wary of that. Ekundayo on YouTube says, I just thank God that our leaders discern the intent of the evils right on time. For me, what people call tribalism is actually tribal or ethnic interest, which every ethnic group should or must do. You see, I think sometimes people also mix up this tribalism and bigotry thing. Bigotry is when you hate people like needy, right? You just hate them. Maybe you're discriminating against them out of just sheer hate and whatever. Tribalism is about self-interest, their preservation. And what I've noticed in Nigeria is this: the people who accuse others of tribalism are the ones who actually practice tribalism. And that's why I always say that every accusation is a confession. They are telling you what they are capable of and what they do. And I will tell you this, I don't blame people for protecting their own interests back at home. I don't. I think they have a right to do so. But I have a right to do so as well. God bless you. Thank you very much, Mr. Ekundaya, for that. He also says this was one of the reasons I said Azikiwe's nationalism was a scam. Azikiwe's nationalism was a scam 1,000 times. You are correct. And that's why I said when I watched the interview with Chief Bode George some days ago, I was like, okay. But I was glad. Watching that video, the only thing I could say, because there's something like I will not say. In my mind, I was just like, thank God for our law. Because the Bode George were those NCNC people. The way he was talking, I was like, have you not read this man that you're talking? Because, see, let me tell you something. Read Zeke's speeches, right? There's a book, by the way. Zeke is the collection of speeches that was published in 1961. Read the speeches. Read his autobiography, my Odyssey. Then read his actions, right? Nǹkan tó ṣe compared to nǹkan tó kọ, kò sí congruence, kò jọra wọn. So when you see some of the people that are supposed to be, whatever in society, shouting Zik, I'm like, Zik how? Left to the Nigeria, Yorùbá and saying, by the way, if you want to know what would have happened to Yorùbá land, just go to Port Harcourt. Whatever you saw happen before the war, that's what would have happened in Yorùbá land, because that was where everybody was going. And if you think I was lying, if you think I'm lying, please go on Telegram now. Please go to Redomi Global. It's a channel you can join, it's free, and look for the white paper on political alignment in Western Nigeria. It was published in 1964. Please read that document. When you are done reading that document, let's have a conversation. There are other books, but that one is easy to read because let's start with that one. Read that document. Tell me what you think. You're looking for nepotism at the worst. You'll find this in that document. May God bless all of us. Thank you very much, Mr. Kundayo. Tokpe says, honestly, Prof, you're a good person. Maybe too good, Steph. It's better to be good. Extremism will die because... So the thing about history is that one has to be very careful. One has to be very careful with history. It's very easy to weaponize history. It's very easy. And I've seen it happen. And I've seen the results. They're not very good. Because the point is not to blame the outsider for all your woes. Sometimes you have to talk about your own people as well and how you can fix it. And the fixing mostly is psychological, especially for our own people. And it's working, by the way, just to be clear, it's working. A lot of people that used to be in obedient movement, they've left. There's still some there, but a lot of people have left. Why? Because it has unraveled. They look at Peter Obi, you look at the things he's saying, and you have to be under a spell to think that person has anything for you apart from hero beer. The only thing that hero beer, factory all over the place. Because actually I'm away, but Baálẹ̀ àwọn ìlú kan lẹ̀ Yorùbá ó máa ní kan sọ ju mo mọ̀ wọ́n sọ Yorùbá ni baálẹ̀ àwọn ibì kan lẹ̀ Yorùbá ó máa rọ̀rọ̀ sọ ju ọ̀rọ̀ China went to China, China went to China, we must go to China. What are you going to do to electricity? I went to Egypt. What's my business with your trip? Oh God. But hopefully a lot of people have moved out of that. I think mostly it was because of the anger. So people have this angst towards Buhari, and also what happened with October 20, the NSAS thing. And I dare say a lot of propaganda attached to NSAS, but we're not going to talk about it today. The anger, people just wanted something different. And when you get to the point of anything but, before you can vote for a monkey because you just don't want to have, and it's understandable. But let's not make that mistake again. Peter Obi is not even. One day I was just thinking that why was Asiwaju shouting Obi? Maybe I just sat there like why do they answer over? Anyway, call up Masha. According, will you remove the subsidy? Yes or no? We played the video the other day. They asked him, are you going to remove the subsidy? He said, okay, so the person asked him that, are you going to remove the subsidy? He said it will not stay another day. It will leave immediately. They now told him later and said, but you said you're going to remove the subsidy from day one. He said, I did not say day one. What's the difference between day one and it will not stay another day? I'll remove it immediately. Then they asked him on Arise, are you going to remove subsidy? He said yes or no. Yes or no? Say yes and no. That's the kind of person I want. By now, your economy will be in the dirt. Ori downhill, ori akiton. The economy ma wan say, are you going to remove subsidy? Yes or no? Yes, but no. But no, yes, no. Galatia. Bola wajare. AIA 4961 on YouTube says Yorubas are the Yoruba biggest scourge, unfortunately. Well, here's the good news, by the way. They are in the minority. We should also be adding that so that, people will not think that Agbara won't go. And let me quickly say something. See, there are some videos that are flying around. Some people are doing some things intentionally. They are trying to get at you. And some of them are actually Yoruba people. Our family don't feel around their generations. While we look up to our Lord, their own fathers were the ones that were working with Zeke to create Yoruba Federal Union. Okay? I'm seeing they're publishing stuff. They're pushing a lot of propaganda. Sometimes you have to starve them. You starve them because they're lying. So what happens is that when you begin to push back, there are things to kill immediately, like some ideas you just nip it in the bud. That is if it's happening amongst your people. But when it's coming from people who are forever against the interests of Yoruba people, I use Jesus' style. Jesus says that let the wheat and the tares grow together. That's what we may have to do. Some of these clowns are intentionally pushing some stupid narratives. I don't want to mention those narratives right now. Just pushing those things. They're in the minority. All right? They're in the minority. And I want to say this. Apart from liturgy, another issue that Yoruba people have, there are three main issues that we have. And maybe we'll have a conversation and discuss it. Three main issues. The fact that we are lackadaisical about things, just like really matter, or matter. Number two is that for instance, plate number Pro in 2026, that kind of thing is unnecessary. But that could be something that could also affect you as a person. It got to a point back in the day, the other thing eventually supported NCNC. See, some of this politics actually goes deep. Once you start doing you'll be making things to favor you at the expense of the collective. Okay? And then the last one is, what some people want to do with religion. But the beautiful thing is that at the core of our essence, of our being, of our Yorubaness, is our Yorubaness. Okay? At the core of identity is our Yorubaness, not religion or supremacy. So please, this is like a plea. Regardless of what you think about others, just know that in one, right? Make sense. There are things that we should not be doing. So I'm hoping that we're going to have a proper session to discuss those things. And believe me, people hear us, and we are grateful for that. Thank you very much, Mr. AIA on YouTube. Shalakwe says, you supposed to talk. Why you not give the way better? Shalakwe is one person I see on Facebook. The man is always angry with anybody that wants to talk about. But thank you very much. AIA says they left Maurice Moye, who actually took office at the Sports Commission in Delta State, APC run. He's not Yoruba now, so they can let him go. This Maurice that they are mentioning worked with Peter Obio. She only by anybody. She Yoruba language on the pedestal. I shouldn't be code mixing. We place Yoruba on the pedestal, right? Where Amagbon Sori Aja Tente to je pe wa yen o. Àwọn jogbo ayé lọ. Even on basic things where any sane person will understand the fact that you can actually get involved in politics and still be Yoruba. I don't think a Yoruba person, like if you're not, you're after my life, if you join APC, that means your life is not worth much. If people are after your life just because they're joining a party. You're just gaslighting people using stupid languages, talking points, and people are getting carried away trying to prove it. You know what I hate most? Proving something to people who are not worth it. I love these clowns are not worth it. Here he says, may we not be cursed. Amen. I was speechless. White Kubo. Good to see you, man. I was speechless. I didn't know how to reply him. I wanted to call his head disease, but as a Christian, I couldn't do it. Banjo was street naive. Okay, let me be Latiber. White Kubo on YouTube says, Banjo was book smart, but street native. Banjo fought for those who were ready to pounce on him and murder him at the drop of a hat. Ojukwu still came back from exile and was justifying his murder. I was speechless. I didn't know how to reply him. I wanted to call his head disease, but as a Christian, I couldn't. Have you seen the offensive maps where Biafra includes all the South, and Lagos? Don't tell them to stop. All those ones that are drawing map, they should never stop. You know, sometimes think about it, horror koje gun we assume that everybody is sane. Banjo, I think, is a cautionary tale for all of us, and we've had a session about. We've had a series about. Maybe we'll do it again, especially as we go towards election. And the reason is because election is a period where people want to prove loyalty. And loyalty to what? Loyalty to selfish, covetous folks. Makes no sense. Banjo, people have insulted him. They've said all kinds of things about him. Some people even call him Yorùbá, but I don't think he was a Yorùbá, but to be honest. I think he was just somebody, like you said, book smart, not street smart. He didn't, and that's not a good thing, right? On Saps or Ojukwu, and Ojukwu killed him. Ojukwu, the one who ran away like a coward, came back 12 years later to a hero's welcome. Banjo, who actually went to face Ibon Ota, was killed, and nobody ever even apologized. And you see Igbo saying that someone should come and apologize to them. You know, only I'm going to have a session on this. It gets me angry. That's why I don't like talking about it. When people say things like Nigeria should apologize to Igbos, you must be mad. How many apologies have we gotten for Banjo? I mean, let's even leave the soldiers who died in the war. Let's even leave the people who died in Ore. Start with Banjo. But they will not. Because victimhood is supposed to be like a family heirloom of some sort. Sharapa says, guy, DM go curse people out. If DM bring violence, no be fight. Okay, them go curse people out. Oh, okay, sorry. Now, pigeon they take right. White Kubo says, Great Britain has not fallen in the mighty name of Jesus. It's a book. It's a book. The book is called Great Britain Has Fallen. I'm not saying Great Britain has fallen. I was recommending a book. You know what? If I find you, I'll find you the name of the author so you can get it. It's actually a very good book. It's actually a book that is talking about, if you read that book, you know Great Britain has actually fallen. And here's another, in fact, let me even say it, although we're not talking about UK. If UK wants to get back on the pedestal or on the platform to launch VC, that's to acknowledge the fact that it's Shubu. If you compare what Britain used to be and what it is right now, that's falling off for. But does that mean it cannot get back? Of course not. Mombo, I want to find you the name of the author, so that in case you want to, it's actually a very good book, and it's a book about hope. It's not a book about we are falling or nothing. Wale Babatunde. It was published in 2002. Great Britain Has Fallen, a book by Wale Babatunde, traces the moral and spiritual decline and fall of Great Britain, being a leading nation that others looked to. The author considered what needs to be done by the church to restore Britain to greatness again. So it's not a book, it's a book about hope. It's not a book about despondency, right? It's just like what we're saying about Yoruba land as well. No, we have lethargy. We can't say, we don't have lethargy in Jesus' name. We have to fix whatever issue we have. All right. Thank you for YouTube. Okay, last guinea on YouTube. White Kubo says, Peter Obi has refused to call his obedience who were insulting Yorubas and leaders to order. Imagine them threatening to chase Yorubas from Lagos. The audacity. That's why the gubernatorial election went the way it did in Lagos in 2023. This next election, Allah Shogboa. All right, folks on YouTube, let me read your own stuff before we close as well. Thank you very much for being here. You didn't come up, I'm going to read your comments. I think that's good enough. Bumblebee says Lagos is literally inside Ogun State. I don't know what the conversation, I think that's quite there. Bumbo, I'm happy now. I said I'm going to be doing less of code mixing. I'll be ojo ati wa biti àwọn èèyàn ti kọ̀rọ̀ lẹ́ẹ̀kan. Olusholo Shinowa says, Prof, those guys are not telling us to be fools and for us not to take care of our own. Imagine it was ruling us in the West, God forbid bad thing. You know, it's like that video where the guy said that if you put 10 Yoruba men in a place, look the same thing, but if you put one Igbo man in the place, it become like Dubai. I'm like, you have millions of people in Southeast and it does not become Dubai. What's the problem? They'll be all right. No, they can't lead in the West. It's. I'm going to play that video the next time we have a full session. I'm going to play that video of the girl that said anybody should come and become a governor in the Southwest. After all, if you are going to do something good, so you're going to look through your entire ethnicity. You don't have any sensible person. Imagine somebody from, I don't know, go Nigeria. You imagine an American telling you that there's nothing wrong with, let's say, control it on Iranian. Like someone from Iran can become president now. If I could even be the younger brother to the Ayatollah, after all, they are good people as long as they're going to build America to become great again. People are very naive. And the reason we are like this is because we have not come to terms with the fact that Nigeria is not a nation. And that there are many nations within Nigeria. And each of those nations have different cultural values, different value system, different worldviews, and different aspirations. And it's not about whether it's good or bad. It's just at least acknowledge that. Then you can now build accordingly. It doesn't have to mean that you have to scuttle or, dabaru bugbe. You don't have to destroy Nigeria. You don't have to break Nigeria. But understand that we are all different. We mentioned Lebanstrom the other day. They want to be able to Facebook. There's nothing like Lebanstrom. We're not trying to take over places. Are you dumb? You have the most densely populated part of the country. The entire south is the size of your state. Think about it for a second. You want Anioma state to be in the southeast, even though it's in south now, but you want another state. You can't have more land, so you're going to go to tell Lagos people that there is no man's land. Then you say you want indigenous land in other people's places. It's because of lack. And again, it's not about whether it's good or bad. It's just I want to know why you're asking me for what you're asking me. You're not asking me for this because of unity. You're asking me because you want to take care of your own scarcity. And I can say no. Because in giving you what you want, I am going to be losing everything and gaining nothing. There's nothing you're bringing to the table I cannot get without you. People don't like to hear the truth. They just say, oh, you hate us, you hate us. Very stupid argument. You hate us. Which one is hate? May God bless. And by the way, there is no part of Nigeria that God has not blessed. That's even before I say God bless Nigeria, yes, but there's no part of Nigeria God has not blessed. Even the ones that are small, and you can have a small land. It's not a curse. I say it often. Yoruba land we are blessed. But I believe it's not like I believe. I know that every part of the country is blessed. It's just that people are blind to what God has blessed them with, and they are covetous. Who told you that you need to have land in order to prosper, or that you need seaports, or that you need to get other people's places? By the way, those young Yoruba people shouting, oh, want to be like America, state of residence, go to Europe and go and tell me how many state of residence you have in across Europe. And if people are not as fierce, I'm not even talking about Asia. Asia ain't bad. Maybe one day you should, please do this research. It's very simple, actually. You can do it in a few minutes. You can do it on Google. You don't have to read books. Why did Malaysia eject Singapore in 1965? Why? Because you talk now, they'll be shouting tribalism. Why did Malaysia eject Singapore in 65? And why did Singapore create the kind of structure they created based on their ethnic reality? And the reason to all those questions is the reason that no country in Africa is progressing. Because we are not facing the ethnic question. We are playing the ostrich. God have mercy on us. Olusholo Shinawa says, until they allow an Ebonyi man to become a governor in Anambra, then I'll agree to one Nigeria. Ebonyi governor. Ebonyi cannot even be a landlord in some parts of Igbo land. It's not one house. Some houses belong, not even one. Some houses belong to when people in Anambra, they're pulled down by community guys. Governor Bao. The one Lagos Igbo or your Igbo, no, that is not going to, is never going to happen. Mombo, Sinchin says GB is currently facing Islamist gaslighting, demanding for Sharia law to replace the current law. Yes, that's why I said that England is a cautionary tale to Yoruba people. You don't even have to go back in the past, just study England and see what's happening. England is blessed, but has gone to the point where folks in the Middle East are afraid of sending their children. In fact, they've stopped sending their children to universities in England so that they will not be radicalized in England. Think about it. Muslims in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia, are afraid that their children will be radicalized if they go to university in the UK. UK, there, you know, continue with everybody, multiculturalism. Okay, I think just a few more, then we can call it a day. It's been lovely being here with you. Thank you very much. Jakesman says there's another one where he was accused of jumping parties. He said the journalist is wrong. Oh, Peter B. In your new conscience here. I am being going to comment section. Oh, Greater Me on TikTok says Peter B is a Temu. Wow. Temu Joko Widodo. Advice from a madman. You guys have bad mouth though. Have bad mouth. Ade says he would have returned the subsidy with the backlash Tinubu suffered. Yes. If Peter Obi had removed the subsidy, he would have restored it with the quickness. If he ever tried to remove, because you know he's not even as strong as Yar'Adua. And Yar'Adua could not take the backlash. Two presidents in Nigeria's history, in recent history, have had to revert their policies because of, I mean, it's one thing for people to show concern and say, can it might affect our union? It's another thing, you know, you have to know which is which, and that's the test of true leadership. There are things you will do, people will complain, and then you say, okay, you know what, let me just chill and let's just leave it be. There are some things you will do, people will say they don't like it, you say it doesn't matter. You will like it eventually. You can hate me now, you like me tomorrow. Like, it's like parent and children relationship. When Yar'Adua came up with the reversal of refineries, that one was a problem. And then Jonathan did his own in 2012 when he, to start with, the way he even did that, and doesn't even, he had done well by giving us Shopee buses. Okay, there were Shopee buses across Abuja. There were people got a lot of money on that, Jonathan. No? Then I don't know who advised him. January 1, 2012, while all of us were celebrating New Year's Day, he then announced subsidy removal. Timing was wrong, but the policy was right. And politicians, took hold of that. They shouted and then he retreated. Tinubu came along the very first day. He says no subsidy. People cried and shouted. It didn't change. Why? Because it's about the structure of the nation. It's not about whether you are eating rice or curry. Peter B will not be able to handle that. The person that cannot handle obedient movements will handle Nigeria. How now? Olumiwa says Ebonyi don't suffer go. Meanwhile, Ebonyi is actually, so here's the irony of this whole Ebonyi thing. Ebonyi is actually the part where you have a lot of fertile land. I mean, it's not very big, but at least on fertile land. They used to look down on Enugu too. I think they still do, but Ebonyi more so. May God have mercy on all of us. I don't want to go into that their story. May God help all of us in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you very much for being part of this session. I've read some of the comments in the comment sections across different platforms. Someone says that Lagos did their eyes. Some people can't see beyond their nose. That Lagos, Ojuwana Fury, no one come back. And the mistake of our forebears will not be repeated. Nobody is pandering towards anybody, but everybody can live in Lagos. You can enjoy Lagos. You will thrive in Lagos. You will succeed in Lagos. You are blessed in Lagos, but you are not going to determine the future of Lagos. And if you have a problem with that, you can always carry your bag and leave Lagos. And this is not just about Lagos, it's also about Southwest. By the way, we speak about Lagos right now because it's the visible one. But when you could not very long, but you know, very but ni Akure, Klodikwe Kabesi, Deji over size one Akure. It's not about Lagos, so it's about Southwest. It's about Yorùbá land, not just even Southwest. And you see, let's also pray for every other region in Nigeria. We do this every Sunday. You know, we pray for the tribes of Oduduwa, prayer for 2. But just in case you are praying for Yorùbá land, please pray for other parts of Nigeria too, because then we want to lay one year. Only my woman rowa si ibi. Columba or tun le want to. Alright. Alright. It would be nice, and that's what I always used to say. Like, it would be nice for all the parts to grow. If everybody is growing, the pressure on one will be less. They will still come to your place where there is peace and be telling you that they're the ones that came to develop. White Kubo, last one on YouTube, says, you are right. Okay, I think they're having a conversation. Here he says, did Mrs. Mogalu not insult the Yorùbá despite the good done to her father, preserving his home during the Civil War? The more we become consistently conscious of the innate ill, the less shocked we'll be, honestly. And then White Kobo says, you are right, Mrs. Mogalu was insulting Yorùbás. The one of Betty Akeredolu was the worst. There was almost no name she didn't call Yorùbás. Especially, in fact, she insulted our men, insulted our mothers. You know, that guy tried. I mean, that woman tried. She just insulted everybody. It is well with her. Olumiwa says, I cannot waste my prayers. You're not wasting your prayers, to be honest. I mean, if they are, I like to pray for people, because if they are good at home, if things are good at home, you know, they will not be a burden. Not that they still will not be burden, but you get the point. At least they will stay back home. But the truth is, they have a need to travel. So it's beyond prayer. I'm just putting that prayer thing because at least it will calm your heart, so you will not become, you know, sad or hateful. But it's important to actually stand up for Yoruba culture. Igbo Jinoju, good to see you. It says Mogalu, the Ataturk disciple. Mogalu, what the day I read that Ataturk rubbish, because it's rubbish. I know he's a professor, but oh God. I think I should have a session on that thing. Okay, we did a session a while back on it. We did, I remember. He was invoking Ataturk and talking about for the nation to grow, the tribe must die. A professor. That's why I said the philosophy of these folks is based on scarcity. It's based on their own reality. What do you mean destroy everybody's ethnicity because you want to build one? Which one? They tried it in 66, it did not work. You want to do it in 2026. You've learned nothing in 60 years. May God help them. But anyway, regardless of what they say, Yoruba people, be proud of your race, be proud of your ethnicity, be proud of your forebears, be kind to everyone, love everybody, right? Hate no one, malice to none, but be fierce and firm about your space. There are people whose goal has always been Lebensraum, taking living spaces in other people's lands. They've had the plan since, they had the plan since 1930s, written down plans since 1944, observed by colonialists and published in 1955, which is what we read today. And it's still alive and well because we saw it in the Indigenous Bill of 2025, and we still see it in people talking about how they want to become governor of Lagos in 2026. It's the same spirit. We've got to speak up for our own. It doesn't mean you hate anybody, but it just means that there's a way you want to govern your space. And if they really want to do one Nigeria and govern everywhere, they should start in Sokoto. Since, of course, Nnamdi Kanu is there, they just greet him and go and start their one Nigeria in Sokoto. God bless everybody. Thank you very much for being part of today's session. It's been a fantastic session. We'll be here again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. I'm going to have a great time together. Is one want to leave, people now send requests? Yeah, I have to go. I really have to go. You know what? Since it's just two, let's take, if you can make it very short, I would appreciate it. I kept reading comments because I didn't see anybody request. But now that I've seen your request, let me just bring you to. Please keep it short, 2 minutes, and then we can just, close the session for today. Thank you very much. Hello, with this copy.
Hi.
Good evening. How are you, sir?
Good evening. How are you doing, sir?
I'm very well,
How's
thank
the
you.
work?
I do well.
So first things first, right? I must say that I can't talk about how you open my eye to a lot of things without talking about getting to know this your page maybe like a year ago or something. Well, honestly, you did a lot for me personally, right? And there's a chain of effect. I've been able to talk to friends and family, nieces, cousins, right? This was me 3 years ago that somehow ignorantly, some years ago, I was let me say I was inactively part of the obedience movement, inactively, right? Then I remember my auntie telling me that no, that I shouldn't go for that. Rather, I should go for whatever we have. That's the Tinubu and all that. But I wasn't even going to give into that. But one thing I noticed immediately after the election, immediately after um, Lagos was lost, then the narrative came out, and I felt so bad. I felt so bad, but meeting your channel was just like a sucker to me. Then my eyes were open. I understood things better. And this is same me 3 days ago, talking boldly to one of my colleagues at work that Yorùbás are never tribalist. Instead, it is the other parts of this world that are tribalist. That I should go and check. But the argument was so intense that even told me that Yorùbás called um Igbo Igbo. That why can't they call Igbo Igbo? And just just on one check, I just googled Igbo. When did they start? When did they start using the word Igbo? I just showed him 1970 something. He was stunned, and eventually, when he told me that no, they make mistakes. Those people who make up. At the end of the day, I look back at myself and I realized that so these were things that my parent never taught me. These were things that even my own siblings don't know. I think to have the information, right? So thank you very much. God bless you. And I think we
Amen.
need to keep this movement going on. Then lastly, I want to talk about the books you mentioned. Are all your books on that Radio Me Telegram group? All the books that you've been mentioning, you've been quoting from, are they on that platform where I can get practically, I'm sure I can get practically like 85 to 90% of those books on that platform, right?
Yes, especially the ones by yes. I mean, all those books are there. Books about Nigerian Civil War you find there. There are some books that you may not find there, maybe because they are no longer they're out of print. Because there are some books that even me I'm trying to find again, like I have, but I'd like to stock them on Radio Me Books, but they're out of print. But many of the books I mentioned, you will find them on that platform. Yes, on Telegram.
All right.
Radio Me Books.
I'm a very busy person. I think I should be able to get audio version for some of them. But thank you very much. I think we'll talk
Thank you,
about
sir.
that subsequent. But I
Absolutely.
appreciate your program.
Absolutely.
God bless you, bro. Thanks.
Amen. Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll just add this to the conversation before we go. I spell Igbo IBO. I spell Igbo IBO. And I do that not because I'm trying to disrespect any group, but because number one, I mean, I'll tell you my number one, but let me just use this one. The real reason I'll tell you later, but let me just start by saying that when you read all the books by Achebe, all the way into the 1960s, 70s, Azikiwe's works, everybody was Igbo, okay? Books by different people, Talbot, Baston, everybody's IBO. Even Igbo people writing books is IBO. That's one. Number two, the primary reason I use IBO is because they want to use the spelling to take over spaces in Yoruba land. And I thought it was a joke until I heard a king rewrite Igbo story by using a spelling of IGBO to claim Ile-Ife. So they are Igbo. By the way, in their own pronunciation as a people, they don't have B. it's aggressive for them. It's not heavy with Yoruba. Gbi on gbi. It's like bo. Igbo one is bo. It's not gbi. All right. So they don't say gbi in Igbo. They say bo. And I studied Igbo when I was in school. So anybody that wants to come out counter me should please feel free to come up. We're not going through Igbo linguistics. We can stay there for a bit. Maybe not too deep, but the one I know on that word, Igbo. Igbos never call Igbo. They don't have Igbo in Igbo language. If you read G.T. Bazen's book of 1921, Among the Igbos, he said the best way to actually pronounce that stuff is IBWO, Igbo. And because I learned from a very fantastic Igbo teacher, she will say, he will use the word Igbo. So it's Igbo. So it's not Igbo, like the one we have here. So they will use ordinary spelling. They say they own Ijebu Igbo. They say they own Igbo. They own Ife. We'll go back to the original spelling. If you don't like it, you will like it. It's Igbo. So I know some people say that because they want to insult them, but that's not the reason. I say that because if you're using ordinary spelling to claim people's lands, you might as well just stick to your spelling. And by the way, I read this here before. There was a publication in 1965 thereabout when a foreign observer said this is going to cause confusion because he had been to Ijebu Igbo, but that when he went to the Nigerian embassy in the UK, they told him that IBO is not of the people, but that IGBO is the language, but they're just trying to bring it in at the time. Then by 70s, 80s, in fact, IGBO did not become very popular until the 1980s. Okay, but I prefer IBO because I don't want people to use ordinary. Can you imagine ordinary spelling? Just because you can spell things and the spelling is the same thing, therefore you own Yoruba land. Very stupid mindset. So it's IBO. It was IBO. It will be IBO, and everybody should enjoy their IBOs. God bless you without the IPOs. God bless all of us with plenty of IPOs. Thank you for being part of today's session. I didn't see Bumblebee, but I'm glad you are here, and I'm glad everybody is here. Thank you for the likes, and I want to clap for you guys for 162.6k likes. Thank you for your support. I really do appreciate everything you do for us every day when you tap. Thank you for doing that. It helps a lot. And thanks for the gifts. Excuse me. Bumblebee, I accepted your request a while back. Okay, you know what? Let's just take Bumblebee and then we can close. Hopefully, it doesn't really take some more time. Hello, sir.
Ekale, Eshe. So my submission is always very brief and concise.
Yes, sir.
So I think one of the things I really wanted to contribute is formula to one is becoming very obvious and very it's becoming obvious to everyone. And nǹkan tó ń sọ pé táwọn àgbà sọ pé ọ̀rọ̀ tó bá ń ṣe lẹ́yìn ọmọdé ọ̀rọ̀ yẹn kò ní last kò ní pẹ́. So one of the things I've seen with the structure that the Asiwaju is pushing is such that the people see that Lagos has a consensus candidate right now. Ogun State has a consensus candidate. And these are people that have proven that they understand what the template is. They have proven themselves to be loyal to the system and to the structure. It's almost exactly the same thing that Baba did with AG. Pushing forward people like, Afri Rwani, people that were competent, that have proven themselves to be competent in the cabinet. And those were the people that were the strongmen that were pushing. You don't even need, in an army, you don't need too many generals. There will always be foot soldiers, but the people that are the heads in all those places, look at what Cardoso is doing for them in CBN. These are people that they understand why. They bought into the vision, and they won't just go to those places and come and start stealing and robbing people blind, because they are stakeholders. They bought into the vision and mission of what the party wants to execute. And it's so great. And like I said before, one of the beautiful things, one of the most interesting things that I've seen that they've achieved is the decentralization of a lot of things. Number one, they were able to change the policy on tax and the tax reform such that the subnationals and the states and everybody is able to get money to execute projects in their domain. One of the reasons I really buy into it is the fact that ẹ mọ̀ pé tí gbogbo nǹkan ṣe ń lọ, àwọn olórí wa, they are wise o. We have leaders and one day we'll be praying for this man in the near future. In the not too distant future, we'll be praying for him. And it is at that point we understand some of the things they've done. Beyond she structure everything, that 8-year turn, tí àwọn máa ṣe 8 years, táwọn máa ṣe 8 years, that's the only alternative for us not to have a civil war to break this country apart. Because if they respect our turn and we respect our turn, we'll keep pushing like that. And another thing is, I want to recognize pé àwọn people here, sorry to say, they are not very, very good at managing the macro economy. And one of the things that I see that this restructuring is doing, both restructuring of security architecture and policy and tax reform and everything, is such that the 8 years that we will still not be handicapped to grow in our own region, which is very, very powerful. They have seen these things ahead. There will be a time, look at what happened now. Baba Sanjo Kurumbe, Yara came in, pandered. Jonathan pandered, made a mess. It went over to Buhari. Buhari made a complete mess of the economy, didn't know how to run everything. Now we are having another person from our side having to clean up all the mess and decadence that is going on there. But we cannot always afford to sit on the sideline and our growth will be hindered while people that are there that we don't have any option than to let them, if we want Nigeria to be at peace, we have to let them do their own turn as well. So this is the new structure, but we cannot afford to be